Get on your feet. Now time is over with the quickness. Can I get a witness like Jehovah? Amen. Keep it up till I say when. Now I'm busting out the playpen. It's the era of Jake Rivera. Sparking revolutions like in one ton of mirror. Like Pharaoh getting played from the hands of the creator. Locust devouring all the hocus pocus. Focus on the most like the curious unload. Contents under pressure. About to explode like the Farino. Mean and green, so check my signal. It's the skinny individual who did you well. I kid you not. I think you stop if you got that scheme. Cause my team bring the steam like a wonder from an oasis. And the race is right. Now it's time to take my place in the sun. You can't deny the force. 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 You can't deny the force.
Resistance is futile. The governmental approval. Invent the time to dance the skills of fuse. Get futile. It's brutal. So expensive, penny speed. And the ball and symbols all suspended sentence.
Self-suppression of evidence will be that with belligerence.
And you can hesitate penance cause like the rest of your 10 hands. Your confession is expected if you think they were persistent in a method. Yes, you guessed it.
Blessed are we who come in the name of J.
Our spreads like my
I declare.
it's a state of emergency, the president sends. So don't expect the reality, depend on me, my vanity. It's enough for giving me.
You can't resist the skin.
So give yourself a ribbon, it's still feel the warm emotion while you see.
Cross cautiously. You can't deny the force.
No, you can't.
You can't deny the force. You can't deny the force.
No, you can't.
You can't deny the force. You can't deny the force.
No, you can't.
You can't deny the force. You can't deny the force.
No, you can't.
You can't deny the force.
It's like we're back in the studio. Los Angeles, 1997.
That's a good analogy.
Brett Gurewitz behind the controls. This is Brett. I don't need to tell the truth, but I never lie. I don't need to bow to you. You're just passing by. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I come back to you. Get inside my troubled mind with all of your threats. Sometimes I think I was blind. Not before we met. I never wanted to be the one that you depend on for your life. When you cry, it smells like soup. Sound like Shona knife. Never fear about what I said all night. I got a right. Each time I said all night. No, I just might. You make me stay all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stay all night. I'm gonna stay all night. You're an evil little girl. I'm a twisted man, tearing through your perfect world. Make you understand. I never wanted to be the one you bitch and moan and come home to. But as long as you look good, I come back to you and do the things you do. Stay all night. I got a right. Each time I stare all night, no, I just might. You make me sad all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me sad all night. I'm gonna stay at all. I would never treat you bad. You deserve the best from me. If you want to keep your place, you better get down on yours. Yeah, Todd wrote this one.
Yeah.
You think? This is not mine. Stand all night, I got a right. Each time I stand all night, no, I just might. You make me stand all night. It's just that side of you tonight that makes me stand all night. I'm gonna stand all
Night. Text the round
R.I.P. Todd.
questions, comments, wagers. Give us a reason. Sleeper fantasy play, your best alternative line, whatever you have. Text the round robin 757 354 5517.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, take us that star-spangled banner yet wave, for the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This is the Deep End Broadcasting Network.
You are tuned in to the Round Robin with Stephen Murray on Deep End Broadcasting.
Down up in these streets, nobody left to spend. Still singing Bible night before my praise on the bed. Way overhead, I see the crowd and flashing blue red lights. I'd rather see the college outside.
Up and ready to go on a Saturday morning here on the Deep End Broadcasting Network. I am Stephen Murray. We are ready to roll. NFL Divisional playoff round starts this afternoon in Baltimore. This is the Round Robin. I am Stephen Murray. We are broadcasting live from our beautiful studios in the lovely Chicks Beach section of Virginia Beach, Virginia, the United States of America. Wherever you are listening to us around the world, we thank you for tuning in on this Saturday playoff special. And as always, if you're new to the show, we might be getting some cross-listening out there from some newbies or people just starting to catch on, as I'm happy to report views seem to be going up and up, getting comments from people we have no idea who they are. So that's always a good sign. And we welcome all of that. And we look forward to breaking down today's schedule as we always do. So the way this show is structured is this. We start off with the weather, the updated lines overnight. We try to be your very first look as soon as you can tune in the morning. The goal for your morning is this. You keep us tuned in for the long haul. There's nothing quick and fast about this. We got to take a lot of information in,
really find the best angles, and we really come up with a lot of good stuff. And if you were listening last week, obviously the playoffs are right in our wheelhouse. So what we'll do is we will look at the lines and the weather, get refreshed there, get a good feel for that. I'll go over a brief summary of where we stand with each of these teams. Then we'll bring on our man, Dave Del Grande from Castro Valley, California. He gives us that unique West Coast perspective. He's a writer with Field Level Media, covers the Golden State Warriors. We'll have to ask him about the coach there who passes away. See, I've heard his name butchered wrong all week. I've had it written down so I won't butcher it. And here we go. Again, we're butchering it. Milojevic, the coach for the Warriors. So we'll ask him about him and see how that may impact the team. Maybe they can rally around it. I'll share a little story about one of my college teammates as well, who happened to pass away right in front of us on the rugby field back in 1993. So we'll get into that with Del Grande, and of course we'll get his take on all of these games, get his best angles. We'll do his non-greedy ticket, which are his key plays that he likes for today. Probably has one from each game, and then he's had a lot of success. I'll tell you what, if you bet his props straight up, you are raking it in. It's very conservative in his approach. Non-greedy is the reasoning there, but he's not afraid to risk it a little bit and come up with a greedier version of what he likes as well. So we love all that on the show. And that's what we'll do. We'll go through all the lines. We'll go through the alternate lines. We'll go through props, passing, receiving, rushing. I try to identify players who can step out of nowhere. That's one thing we do really well on this show. We grab on the guys like Trey Palmer last week for Tampa Bay, and they have great success, and we'll see if we can ride that out for a few weeks, especially in the playoff run where traditionally in the playoffs, new stars are born. I mean, literally, like Jordan Love, everyone was killing this guy about 2 or 3 months ago, and here he is in the playoffs, and he's the new darling. So it's really what have you done for me lately here in the NFL. It's funny. I saw a little thing about the Patriots. This is the anniversary in which they beat the Colts 20-3, and I think it was the Corey Dillon season. It wasn't the game where Ty Law had 3 interceptions, but it was the other Colts defeat where they won 20-3 in the divisional round. The game with Ty Law, that was in the championship, I believe. So what happens there is people forget that Bill Belichick put together all those great teams back in the day, and it was still a learning process for Tom Brady. So Belichick, who's getting kicked to the curbs here lately, as he looks to be landing in Atlanta, that appears to be the way he's going with his second interview down there with the Falcons. So Belichick, people often forget how good 20 years ago all those defensive players he put together did. He put together Vrabel, Roman Pfeiffer, Richard Seymour, Willie McGinnis, just to name a few guys who are dominating forces on teams you create. So it really is a what have you done for me lately league. Jordan Love, a media darling right now. Baker Mayfield, how about him? He's the one who is getting killed forever. I mean, how many times have you heard Baker sucks? Baker is terrible. He's no good. I never believed that. I will say that. I just never quite believed it. And whenever someone told me that Baker was terrible, and I know you're out there listening, I would kind of rebuke you a little bit. He was in the AFC Championship game, a game in which they maybe should have won against the Chiefs, to be honest. I feel like the referees kind of got involved in that one. There's a late hit going out of bounds for the Browns. It was a fumble, all right, where it was a turnover, but what it was a helmet-to-helmet blast by the Chiefs, and it was never reviewed, and the Chiefs took over, and I don't think the Browns sniffed the end zone again. But at that point in the game, the Browns were going to take the lead. So Baker Mayfield doubted, how about this? How about going from Carolina to the Rams? and a team you just haven't even played with last year. And he did very good last year. I mean, he came right out of the gate and won a game. A player who plays with a chip on his shoulder for sure. He's been fantastic. But Baker just with so much hate over the last few years, even. He'll never be any good. Well, here he is. He's taken the Buccaneers now, and which is his fourth team, right? In his short career, it still feels like. So Baker Mayfield now taking Tampa Bay into Detroit against the Lions team, who's been fun. I love them. I love their style with Coach Campbell. But, man, if your secondary can't stop anyone through the air, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So we'll see what everyone thinks about that. Dave Del Grande coming up with Field Level Media. He joins us every week. We have him shortly, coming up next, actually. And then what we'll do is me and Nephew Dave will pop back in the studio at 9:30 a.m. in the morning, about 9:30 a.m., and we'll go over the full card for this afternoon ourselves. Maybe we'll track down the Ant-Man. We shall see. And we should be. It's just the 4 games. So I don't see any reason why we won't be wrapped up by 10:30, maybe even 10:15-ish. We'll see how the morning develops. But that's your goal, is to soak it all in. If you're driving around working, if you're working around the house or in the garage, or you are driving around town, whatever you may be doing, sipping on coffee, sitting there staring into space. All right, go ahead and tune us in, and we'll come up with some really good stuff, I think, for this afternoon, which is I'll say this, for someone who is my style of bettor or wagerer, and I would say that, I mean, when I say my style, I mean in the sense that I'm going to take some chances that other people are going to take. All right. That means underdogs. That means underdogs winning. That means underdogs winning by margin at times for really good payouts. And seem to be doing good moving the lines if we keep them right where we do, and we do, to ensure what we have going on. So, when you move some lines, you can make a big payout. And I don't know if that opportunity is necessarily there this weekend. We'll have to see what everyone thinks. If you look at the games, and we'll go through them right now, and we'll do the weather. So tune us in all morning, and here we go. Ravens -9.5 and 43.5 with the Texans, where it's going to be a cold day, 15-mile-per-hour winds. All right, dome team Texans going outdoors to Baltimore. Baltimore now, you got to remember, have Lamar Jackson and other key personnel have not played in 3 weeks. All right, so it's been a while. Texans coming off the big win against Cleveland last week. And Stroud was able to rest the good portion of the fourth quarter. So that might serve him well, actually, in this game as too. And in fact, I don't know how much effort you make when you go back there and you're just slinging darts left and right to a Cleveland defense who can't stop you whatsoever. So an easy day for Stroud. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but he makes it look easy. He'll get another opportunity today in Baltimore. All right, so good first game to start. We'll get into it with the crew. I still have mixed feelings about it. You hear everyone talking about how much they love the Ravens. And let's see. Let me see if I can get an updated game detail on all of this with the spread. All right, so we have even bets and even money on the spread both ways. It looks like there's just a hair bit more bets and money coming in, just a little over 50% coming in on Houston against the Ravens with the spread. As far as a total goes, I think everyone likes this under, if I remember correctly, looking at it. Yes. Well, this is an interesting dynamic. Okay, so the public is taking the over in this game with the Ravens and the Texans. 65% of the bets are on the over. But how about this? 69% of the money is on the under. All right, so that's quite a disparity. that tells you that there is big bets on the under for this game with the Ravens and Texans. Are they smart money? We shall see. I personally like the over in this game, but I don't know. That's a kind of a weary stat right there when you see that 7/10 of all the money is on the under of the Ravens Texans, yet the majority of the bets are on the Texans and Ravens. So all the small money is on the over and all the big money is on the under is the bottom line there. So we shall see how it plays out. I think that's just a lot to do about Stroud coming outside, dome team from the South coming up to Baltimore, et cetera, on the road. Ravens well rested. Ravens look dominant at times for sure. All right, so an uphill battle for the Texans and the Ravens, first game off the board. And weather, I'm not going to be too concerned about overall moral of the story. Now, we could get some rain tonight in San Francisco, and it looks like we will have rain. It's a 75% chance. So really tune into that before the game, because the over-under for this is 50.5 points. All right, so that is a lot of points, especially if it's going to be just a raging downpour. The 49ers are laying 9.5 to Green Bay. You almost want this to be in a dome game. Almost like in Cowboy Stadium last week, just to see how the Packers really would match up speed to speed. So I'm wondering what this weather will do. And the weather is a good neutralizer as well. You're going to have to win more of a physical, tough football game. Yards may be a little tougher to come by. At the end of the day, I'm not so sure weather's going to be an issue with Green Bay. I think they probably practice and play in the kind of cold weather, snow type of mess all the time themselves. I've actually been to their facility. They have plenty of practice fields right outside there of Lambeau that they can get out in the cold air and rain if they want to and be able to run right indoors, all right when they're done. But I'm not so sure the Packers are in a little bit of a mutter, and the 49ers themselves, I think their worst weather game was against Cleveland, and the game in which they lost, that was probably a game they probably should have won, to be honest. But, the 49ers can't be had as much as they've been great and dominant this year. They still have 5 losses. I mean, that's 5 times they still were beat. So I think that gives the Packers potentially a fighting chance here in this game. Weather's going to be interesting to watch before pregame. I definitely would lean over without the weather. And I have some interest in that already, but I think I'm going to lay off of that for now. I think weather is going to be kind of important at the end of the day if it is coming down like it's buckets and buckets of rain. So we shall see with the 49ers and the Packers. But a fantastic job. We like the Packers. We said it last week. Don't be surprised if they get the outright win against Dallas. Very skeptical about Dallas's chances to win last week. We definitely like the over in that game. So that came in, that flew through for us. And that was fantastic overall. As we did the over in the Texans game last week, a game which a lot of people were actually going under with the Browns and the Texans. You got to remember that too. That was going to be an under with the Browns and the Texans. Playoff football, here we go. And they were able to get 59 points on the board. All right, so that's your. In fact, how about this? All 4 divisional games last year went under the total. All right, so you got to keep that in mind. And we said that last week as well with the wild cards, that last year and the previous year, most of the games were over. I think all of them were. And I think we went 4-2 to the over in the wild card round this year. So games did trend over. We shall see if they regress today. I'm skeptical. A lot of people on the unders. There's a lot of action with that money on the unders. I'm a little skeptical. We shall see. The money-wise on this, let's look at this. So it's about the same. The percentage of the bets and the money are right at 58, 59% for the 49ers. All right. So most people betting the 49ers by a 6-4 margin, 3-2. For every 2 people betting the Packers, you have 3 betting the 49ers. And that's with the money as well. So there's nothing really to read crazy about that. The other thing to note here is not only the public on the over in this game, so they definitely don't want to see a lot of rain. We have 74% of the public bets. The smaller money is on the Packers 49ers over right now, and 83% of the money. So even the sharper sides are taking some refuge here with the over in this game. So we're the most money's coming in on the under of the Ravens-Texans game. There still is a little bit of a favor here to the over with the people throwing down the big bets as well as the small bets with the 49ers-Packers. Okay, so let's get to the next game. These are tomorrow. Those are your 2 games tonight, and no doubt a fun evening for sure, I think. I think you have 2 good ones potentially to cross. It's going to be blowout city, or they're going to be really, really good games. It's going to be one of the 2. All right, so we shall see what develops today. All right, Buccaneers and Lions. That will be indoors, no weather there. Lions -6.5 and 49.5 is the spread there. Again, Baker Mayfield, we already talked about him having a fantastic season, basically written off for dead, but he's made a miraculous comeback. Very inspiring, too, for sure, the way that he's approached having to play for 4 teams in his short career, just being tagged as never good enough. The Lions, I love them. They're fun, a great team. I love Campbell, the coach. Love the Goff story himself. I mean, he has a Baker Mayfield story himself. To be honest, Goff written off by the Rams, a team in which he beat last week to be able to advance to this round. And another good call by us. In fact, that was the bad beat of the week, was the over in that game. I said I like the Lions on the money line more than anything. And I did predict that kind of thing could happen as well. In fact, when I took my over last week with the Packers Cowboys, I bumped it down a little bit to over 45.5 just to be able to, and we said that on this show, and that's just to be able to climb over that total and not get bad beat at the end of the day. Well, that's kind of what happened in the Buccaneers-Lions game. Although I played off of this on my main winning ticket. If you were smart, you took that over-under from 50.5 and you took it down to, like what I did, 45.5, and you would have won because that was a bad beat there. Only 9 points in the second half after getting 38 in the first half for that game to stay under the total with the Rams and the Lions. I'll tell you what, too, another bad beat story. It really plays off on me because I did a first instinct play of $9, a $9 bet I did. This was immediately after the Week 18 games ended, right after Buffalo won. I was credited with a little divisional money. So I went ahead and did a first instinct playoff round bet for the next week. I took the Houston, and there were not many lines on the board at this point. Really, you could bet the spread. You could bet the over-under, or you could bet either team to win or lose by 14 points. Those were the only lines available. So I took over straight up 43.5 in the I think I had 45.5, and I actually dropped to the public. So I actually think I had a better number. Is that right? No, I think I had 40. Whatever I had, I didn't. I needed to not get as much as I thought. So probably 43.5. We had the over there. We took the Packers. Was that the second game? Yes. We took the Packers to win by 14 points at 17-1 odds, in which they did. All right, so that's 2-0. The 3-0 would have been the over in the Lions-Rams game, except they only got the 9 points in the second half. So that killed the ticket. But the last play of the Buccaneers to win by 14 points or more, and they were at a big plus number. I think like 11-1 odds to do that at that time before their line dropped earlier in the week. But the Buccaneers to win by 14, which they did against the Eagles. I was left out in the cold by those 9 points only being scored in the second half of that game. And that $9 wager down the toilet would have paid $4,635 on those 4 plays. So what about that? How about the other bad beat? We just needed we had a risk-free, and we needed Amari Cooper for 1 more yard. We had Amari Cooper for 60, Nico Collins for 70, and we had someone else, Jake Ferguson maybe for his yards. I think it was a Pacheco touchdown, Tua under his passing yards, check. And no, Pacheco was just rushing yards, 50. That was my favorite prop of the week. That crushed it. And the under in the Miami-Kansas City game. So 5 of the 6 legs hit. 1 Amari Cooper yard shy of, I think, $1,600, $1,500. All right, so bad beat on 9 points in the second half with the Rams game and the Lions last week, and 1 Amari Cooper yard. A total 1 yard and 9-point second half. Did not turn into $6,100 if you put it into perspective that way. But a winning week nonetheless. You don't complain about it. And a good story. You'll remember that kind of bad beat for a long time. Do you remember when these assholes did this to me? So there you go on that. All right, Kansas City and Buffalo, 2.5 for Buffalo, 45.5. The Bills were a money line play for me last week, and that was a no sweater. If you had them in that regard, if you laid the points, you're sweating it out a little bit for sure. Let's get to the money on this one. And here's the deal here. Mahomes and company seem to be, they have a chance to come alive. We've been killing them all year. Why do I have a funny feeling that Patrick Mahomes is getting ready to wake up? And here we go with another run at the Super Bowl. Now, the Bills' secondary, much like the Lions' secondary, is a little bit in despair. They have some injuries. So they're going to have to hold off of a Patrick Mahomes type of rally. And if you look at it bet-wise, right now it's split with the public money, literally 51-49. And most of the professional larger bets are going on Buffalo, just by a little bit, 57% to 43%. But you see some of the bigger bets going on Buffalo in this. And as far as the total and the line go, we have 60% of the public betting the over. So all the smaller bets going to the over, 60 to 40. So for every, again, for every 3 to 2, 3 people betting the over, you have 2 people betting the under. But you have 2/3 of the bigger bets on the under in this game right now, 45.5. So all the big bets coming in on the under with the Bills and the Chiefs. Did we look at this dynamic for Tampa Bay and the Lions? Tampa Bay split. Most of the professional money is on the Lions on the spread. That's 3 to 2. And a lot of money is on the over, public and the bigger bets, bigger and smaller bets on the over with the Lions and Buccaneers, if you rewind back to that. So some over favorites here in terms of the public and the money with the Buccaneers. And then the this is much like the Ravens and Texans game right now with the Bills and the Chiefs. All the big bets like the under in that game. All right, so those would be the 2 strongest plays. As if you're going to look at it in terms of thousands of dollars going on bets, then I think you want to take the under in the Texans game and the under in the Bills game. Is that what it's saying? Yeah. And lean with the overs on the Packers and the Lions game. All right, so interesting stuff. We shall see how it plays out. I don't know if I necessarily agree with all that, but it's interesting to see where all these big bets go at. All right, so that's it. Again, once again, the lines right now, 9.5, 43.5 for Baltimore. 49ers, 9.5 and 50.5. That's the night game tonight. And then tomorrow, the Lions -6.5, 49.5. The Bills -2.5 and 45.5. Okay, so let's get to my man, Dave Del Grande. Enough of me yapping about playoff history and bets and stuff like that. Let's get into business for this week. We're going to have to talk some NBA right off the bat, and we'll go ahead and queue up Mr. Del Grande. I need to get his banner up here as well. Let's see here. I hate to have to start with this, and I'm not sure if I've heard his name pronounced correctly all week. I've heard a couple of different ones. But Milojevic, the assistant coach there for the Warriors, apologize again if I get the name wrong. Unfortunate team event, it sounds like, in Salt Lake City. Has a major health issue. He passes away. First off, what about him just as a human overall? You covered a team. You know them well. What about the coach here that we've lost?
Well, you see this a lot more these days in the NBA than, when I first started covering the team, certainly, 2 or 3 decades ago. Not only has there been a great influx of foreign players in the league, but also foreign coaches. And you see it in the way the game is played. In fact, when my wife and I watch games together, she's always lamenting about how come there are no more American big men? And and I said, well, there are American big men. They all turn into Holmgren, these days, because this is the foreign influence in the game. The foreign big men, learned a long time ago that, if we can stand outside this 3-point line and shoot and draw defenses out, it opens up the offense for everybody. Obviously, it wasn't the kids' idea necessarily to do this, but the coaching that was done in foreign countries. And so you see, this kind of influence more and more in the NBA these days. The Warriors were a little bit ahead of the rest in terms of bringing in foreign coaches, getting them, getting their input. Now the Warriors aren't necessarily a team that has they don't have Brooke Lopez, they don't have Holmgren, they don't have one of these big guys who stands outside and shoots 3-pointers. But that said, you still see Kevon Looney, who I think has taken either 4 or 5 3-pointers in his career. You still see him standing at the top of the key when the Warriors come down and set up their offense. And like so many, of the foreign coaches who have come into the league, they just seem to be really appreciative of the opportunity that they're getting here. Those of us who have lived here all our lives haven't seen the conditions in foreign countries. Oh man, we die to have a gymnasium like this.
Right.
I can't believe that you guys have 20 practice balls. We were lucky to have one at practice. So there's that kind of aspect too, that a lot of these foreign coaches are really, really liked because they're like kids. They're just happy to be there. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this, from the Warriors standpoint. It was, an assistant coaches come and go, and you're friendly with them. The next thing you know, they're coaching a college team or another NBA team, and you lose those kinds of friendships. But this guy was special, and not just him, but guys like him are special in the NBA just because, man, he's like the ball boy. He just, he's smiling every time you see him. He's got the basketball. He's throwing it to you. He's like, there's no task that's, demeaning to him. He's just really happy to be here and makes it fun to come to practice. And I think that'll be what's missed most.
In 1993, the spring of 93, on my rugby team, we lost one of our teammates on the field right in front of us, actually. Abnormally hot April day. It was very muggy. We had those thick cotton rugby jerseys that they had back then, long sleeves. We had all black, mainly black and gold striped on the arms. But they took a lot of heat on when you're running around. And this is before the days of hydration and the knowledge about that. And is it Corey Stringer for the Vikings, who's the guy who didn't get enough water during practice and passed away, and that kind of opened everyone's eyes to how important it is to get water in your body when you're playing these kinds of sports, especially in the heat and humidity. So the one of the byproducts of that event and afterwards is our team definitely got a lot tighter. We became a lot stronger. We even rallied around it to get a lot better. Probably too soon for this, but is there an opportunity for this team who's not been playing very well at all, maybe to use this as a rallying point of their season where they can play for the coach here? Let's go ahead and get back to playing good Warriors basketball. We're going to have to step it up a little bit. Maybe we can make a good playoff run still. You're well in the pulse of that team. How can this team operate going forward?
I don't see it being a long-term thing, but it certainly will be a short-term thing. I think that the first game or the first couple of games back, you're going to see that kind of sentiment. We're playing for him. We're playing for a cause. Let's win this one for him, kind of thing. It's this is maybe a poor comparison, but I'll do it anyway. When Steve Kerr hurt his back and was not able to coach the Warriors at the start of the season, 2016, I believe it was, and Walton had to coach the team. The first couple of games, you could tell that let's send a message to coach. Let's cheer him up. He can't be here. He's watching on TV. Let's show him that all the hard work he's put in, that we've been listening, that we can win one for him here tonight. And that only lasted a couple of games, but what it did was it gave them a little momentum. I mean, and that's what the Warriors need now. What the Warriors need now is for something positive to happen. They need to, they need for Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins to hit all their 3-point shots one game, and to say, okay, guys, look, when this happens, we're as good as any team in the league, and take that momentum into the next game and hope it happens again. Maybe this is what it is. Instead of we watched Thompson, we've watched Wiggins. It's just not happening this year. But maybe it was Draymond Green coming back that was going to spark this. No, he came back and they got blown out. At Memphis. So what is it? Maybe this is the spark. Maybe this is the thing that brings them together again, just for one game, maybe for 2 games, but they go out there and they're inspired and they play their best basketball of the season. And all of a sudden they realize, all right, we forget what everybody's saying about us. We are pretty good, and we just need to recapture this every time we play. And if they can take that kind of momentum forward, then I think that will be the greatest positive that could come out of this.
All right, let's get to the NFL. And we'll start with a few of the teams last week who got bounced. I'm going to put you in the shoes of playing GM again for a few of these. Let's just kind of go down the punch list of a few of these obvious ones, and then we'll get to the slate of the games that we have for the weekend. Let's start you down in Miami. If you're the general manager there, scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence in Tua being the successful quarterback for you down the road 1 being not very confident at all, 10 being very confident. This is our man. Let's sign him to this very big contract that is going to have to be out there on the table.
Well, I would say the confidence level would have to be no more than a 6 at this level, at this time. But what you have to consider is, Miami's different than some of these other teams that we'll get to here in a minute. Is they this year, in essence, were an up and comer. This is a team that hasn't won. Buffalo dominated that division for years. New England had dominated the division for years before that. This isn't a Miami team that's had anywhere near this kind of success basically since Marino. So for them to overreact at this point and say, we can't take the next step without a new quarterback, I think would be a big mistake. I mean, they didn't show up at Kansas City, and I don't think it was because the quarterback was the big problem. I mean, yes, the quarterback, was like a lot of other guys on that team. He was cold. He did not respond well to the weather there. And that's, is that a problem going forward? Well, it could be. Who knows? You hope not. But I don't think it was because all of a sudden this guy can't get the job done. I mean, this was, one of the top offensive teams, certainly one of the most exciting offensive teams in the entire league this year. And they lost this game against Kansas City, as much because they had 2/3 of their defense out. And they're playing at Kansas City, and the weather was terrible. So I think Miami, without making any changes, can look at next season and say, you know what, we're going to be even better next season if we just play it back one more time. Let's not do anything stupid. And then after next year, maybe make that determination that, all right, here we go again. We had a good season. We got to the playoffs, and our quarterback's not good enough. We need to do something different. I wouldn't make that decision today.
All right, you're owner of the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy. Should he be the coach next year?
Well,
he's back, and I mean, for what we know, he's back now.
I'm not a Mike McCarthy fan.
Right.
I mean, I personally think he held back Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers, for as great as he's been in his career, and has had very, very little postseason, success. And and McCarthy was there for most of that. I blame it on him. I just don't think he's a very good coach. Now, that said, again, do we really want to overreact to a bad game here when Dallas all season had an incredible home record? And, I mean, demonstrated at home that, all right, look, we're the best team in the league when we're at home. Now, they haven't been able to take that on the road against the better competition, but it's a nice starting point. I mean, and yeah, they lost this first playoff game, and yeah, they have a history of failing in the playoffs, and yes, McCarthy has a history of failing in the playoffs, but I think it's too early to say we need to get rid of this guy because, man, they had the second best record in the NFC. I mean, they were a team that I thought had a good chance to make it to the Super Bowl this year based on how good they look at times. I don't see why next year will be any different. I think next year they go in the NFC as one of the top. I mean, Philadelphia would expect maybe to not be as highly regarded next year. Detroit, who knows, and they may even make the Super Bowl this year, but I don't think they're considered as highly regarded as Dallas. I think Dallas goes in next year at worst as the number 2 team in the NFC without making this coaching change. So again, kind of like Tua, I would give McCarthy one more shot at it and see where it takes you next year.
All right, you're the general manager of the Eagles. A lot of questions to answer there with personnel and the coaching, criticism all around. When the Eagles are kind of making this dive late, and it was kind of known, you kind of looked around. I'm like, well, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And the best that I could come up with is that it was the coordinators, and probably is a little bit of Jalen Hurts, maybe just not being as good as advertised, I reckon. But you're the general manager. Where are you pointing your fingers to today? And I believe Lurie and Sirianni beating Friday afternoon as well. But your take on the Eagles there?
Well, I mean, to me, if I were the GM of the Eagles, I would get Kelsey and call, who's obviously you said he's not playing anymore, but probably knows more about the inner workings of that team than anybody. Is probably, would give you an honest assessment of where he thinks the problems were this year or what needs to be fixed or whatever. You got a lot of temperamental guys on that team, starting with A.J. Brown, who's had had a great season last year. This past season had a great first half. But he's not happy, and Jalen Hurts seemed to play this season either A, with an injury, or B, afraid he was going to get injured. He just wasn't the same over the second half of this season. He scored 15 touchdowns. Yeah, but, 12 of them were on quarterback sneaks, and then we saw in the playoff game when this was the most disappointing thing that I saw last week. I really expected Jalen Hurts to take this team on his shoulders and say, all right, look, Brown is injured. We've been playing terrible. The defense can't stop anybody, but you know what? I'm going to will this team to a victory. And man, did he not do that. Right. He just looked like he was, he didn't really care. That was really disappointing. And to me, that says more about the state of the team than anything I saw all season. If you can't get this guy excited about playing in a playoff game, then there's something wrong with the inner workings of that team. Like I said, I'd bring Kelsey up to my office. I'd ask for his assessment, and I'm confident that he would say, hey, you know what? This is just a bad mix. You either got to get rid of, half the team, or you got to get rid of your coaching staff. And you know how that usually goes. You can't get rid of half the team. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just went in a completely different direction with their coaching staff.
Can you put these two teams in the same boat, Pittsburgh and Cleveland? And I'm talking in terms of the quarterback there. I mean, it's probably still jury unknown for the most part, but you have a good idea. It's not going to kind of go well at the end of the day. I'm talking about Pickett, who should probably be the starter day one if the season were to start over and everyone's healthy from scratch, and Deshaun Watson as well. A couple of unknown commodities still there that both of these teams, the Browns have invested a lot of money in. Pickett's still on the rookie contract. But if you're the general manager for either one of those, quarterback, your number one concern at this point, how does this team function going forward with what they got?
I don't think there's any comparison between the two. Okay. I think that Watson can still be an elite quarterback. He had some really good games this year, not a whole lot. But he's working his way back into shape. He's quarterbacking a team that is seems to be 20 years behind the times in what they do. I think that this is a team that, as they stay together and get to know each other better, maybe have a slightly different game plan that allows Watson to play more like Kyler Murray. Then I think this team could be a lot better on offense. And the thing about it is they've got a great defense. So they don't need to be Miami. They don't need to be Houston. They don't need to be one of these, let's throw the ball all over the ballpark because our defense is going to give up 30 points, so we need to score 31. No, I think that I think Watson could be a really good quarterback on a really good team moving forward. I don't think there's any question that this is his team moving forward. I think the Steelers are the opposite. I think they have to realize at this point that Pickett is just not very good. And maybe that's, a harsh early, evaluation, but this guy had good weapons around him. I mean, this guy had, Deontay Johnson is a very solid NFL receiver. Pickens on the other side is really an up-and-coming NFL receiver. Freiermuth as a tight end is a top 5 tight end in the league. Got 2 guys who would be starting running backs, bell cow running backs, probably on 10 to 15 other teams in the league. He's got them both. He had, I don't want to say the best supporting cast in the NFL in terms of skilled players, but definitely a top 5. And he did nothing with it. And now, you kind of see, Mason Rudolph comes in, who's been terrible in the past.
Right.
He came in and was serviceable, toward the end of the season. I kind of throw out last week's game, a tough opponent on the road, bad weather. But Rudolph down the stretch did better than he's ever done. And to me, that's like, well, that's just allowing your playmakers to be really good players. And Pickett just hasn't done that yet. I'm not saying, let's get rid of him, but I'll tell you what, I'd bring somebody in to camp next year as competition for the starting position. It isn't going to be either of the 2 guys, that they had backing him up this year.
Right.
It's going to have to be somebody better than that. I can't even throw a name out there for you, but Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's bring in Jimmy Garoppolo to be our, to compete for the starting position, and somebody like that. And because they need even Joe Flacco, who might be a little past this. Might be a little late for this, although he did have a good year this year. But somebody who you could say, look, we're going to give Pickett a chance to be our starting quarterback next year. But if after summer drills and the start of training camp, if he's, still not developed to the point where we think he's, we can make a playoff run with him, then we're going to go with the other guy. And that other guy's going to have to be someone who's tested in some way, like I said, like a Garoppolo, like a Flacco, somebody like that. So I'm not confident that Pickett can get the job done at this level.
If you're the GM of the Rams, and as long as Matthew Stafford doesn't decide to retire for some reason, for all I know, he's coming back next year. You're happy with the direction of your team?
Absolutely.
Yep.
This is a team that way overspent to try to win a championship, and we're successful doing so. And now are still paying for that in some ways.
Yeah, but overcoming that a little bit now too.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
But you've got to realize that this is one of the top coaches in the league, and they've done a good job restocking. So I think to me, the big question mark for the Rams is going to be, do they think the Stetson, whatever his name is, the guy from Georgia?
Stetson Bennett.
Yes, Stetson Bennett. Do they think he's going to be their next quarterback? Because they're probably a year or 2 away, not this next season, but the following season or maybe the one after that, from going from Rodgers to Love. This is going to be from Stafford to the next guy. Is Bennett going to be this guy that, okay, you know what? He's going to sit here. He's going to learn our system for 2 or 3 years, and then he's going to be ready to go. Or, have they determined at this point, he was a good college quarterback, but he's not going to make it at the next level, and then go out there and find this guy that McVay can develop into, to me, the perfect quarterback for the Rams moving forward would be the Michigan guy, who I think is tremendously overrated. I think he's a Brock Purdy type. Nothing wrong with that, mind you. But you need to be in the right system. And the Rams are a great system for a quarterback like that, much like the 49ers, basically the same system, right? You need a game manager, the smartest guy on the field, an extension of the coach, guy that makes his timely throws, as Purdy has done all season. This is what the Rams need moving forward with their next quarterback. I think the Michigan guy can be perfect at that. Where I don't think the Michigan guy can succeed is going in there and say, okay, we just drafted you first. You're going to be the quarterback for the Panthers moving forward. Oh my God. And he's got Sam Darnold written all over him if that's what they do. So, but this is a determination that the Rams are going to have to make. Obviously, they've had Bennett there for a whole year now. Is he going to be this guy who, year or two from now, can take over the reins, or are they going to have to draft that guy this year? It's going to be interesting to watch what they do in the draft.
Okay, let's get to the slate of games. If you rewind back until last year, all 4 of these games did go under the total after a wild, high-scoring wild card weekend. We did get our fair share of points for the most part last week. No help to the Eagles, no help to the Dolphins on that themselves, but the other teams did decent. And how about this, Dave? Bad beat of the century, maybe. And it played out after the fact. But after the week 18 games, after Buffalo cashed a little future for me, I put down a simple $9 bet just on my first gut instincts. And that $9 bet paid $4,650. And my first instincts were over in the Ravens game in Houston, and they got there. Also took Green Bay minus 14 at 17-1 odds. All right, to win by 14 or more. I know it sounds crazy, but that was just kind of my thought. You're getting a big number. Maybe we can hit the slot machine jackpot here on $9 or $10. And then the last one was the Buccaneers to win by 14. The one that missed was right there, number 3 on the list. And that was the over in the Rams and the Lions game, a game in which they got 37 points, I think, or 38 points in the first half. Just needed to get to 51, and then only 9 points in the second half. So bad beat there off of just a little first instinct $9 bet that would have won nearly $5,000. That's all. So I did some first instincts again. I think for the most part, I've kind of stuck to them, except I'm starting to waver on one game. It's going to be interesting to get your thoughts on all of these, because I'll say this, from everything that I've been reading, investigating, and kind of looking into all week, if I'm screaming out in the woods trying to find a lost Packers supporter, a Bills supporter, or a Texans supporter, I'm not finding them at all. A little bit more split action from what I've seen on the Buccaneers and the Lions. So we'll see where you stand on these. The first game, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the game in Baltimore with the Texans and the Ravens. So here we have the Texans. Nice story. No Noah Brown. He's out for the season now. Nice story. Well coached. I thought they've had good game plans here the last few weeks. They are definitely one of the darlings of the league. And here they are after thumping Cleveland. They're up in Baltimore. It's going to be outside. It's going to be colder, but not crazy. It looks like it's going to be 33 degrees. C.J. Stroud did play at Ohio State for what that's worth for sure. And the wind, although they're saying 15 miles per hour, it doesn't look like it's going to be one of those crazy 30, 35, 40 mile per hour windy days. 15 mile per hour winds. I think that's going to be a little bit of an advantage to Stroud here because he's a little bit better passer for sure than Lamar Jackson. But I expect both of these teams to actually try to get to the ground here. I think they both understand that a good path to victory is via the ground. I see a lot of support for the Ravens across the board. Stroud's too young. They're going to have to kind of wait their turn. I've heard all these excuses, none of which leads to the injuries, which would be at wide receiver, which would be the one detriment I'm going to give them. But CJ Stroud just seems to find a way to move that offense. Singletary, talk about guys who, if there was a most improved player, he would be somewhere towards the top of that list. The Ravens have been giving up in their last 5 games over 5 yards a clip on the ground to running backs. So that would be concerning if I were the Ravens. And the other thing I would be concerned about, and even though the Texans played, they're the team who's been playing and banged up, I do think there is something to having too much rest. And this team has not played in now 3 weeks. Lamar hasn't, and a few of the other players. They do get Mark Andrews back. That's going to be a boost to offenses as well for Baltimore. I look at it from the outside looking in, and yes, it does just look like at the end of the day, a tough spot for the Texans. But I don't know if I can doubt Stroud. I just don't. I think the safer play here, and I did mention that all these games went under last year, is I think both of these teams, although they're going to try to run it, I think that they both can score. I think Baltimore's going to be able to score at home. Lamar trying to get rid of the playoff hex that he has on him, try to get to the next round here. AFC Championship game. They're really 2 games away from the Super Bowl. If you told them they had the Texans, they would take that all day long. Both of these teams played pretty close. Game earlier this season, the Texans actually winning that game. I'm going to give the Texans a puncher's chance here. I think Singletary can actually have a good game for Houston. I think Baltimore is likely to squeak it out at the end of the day, but I think this is going to be a closer game than 9.5 points. I'm not going to see a dominating scenario here. I think there's going to be a little bit to the rust factor, but I'm going to give the Stroud and the Texans a puncher's chance, and I think this game can climb over 43.5. What do you got?
Well, for a change, I don't necessarily agree with anything you said.
Okay.
I don't think Houston belongs here yet. And I think that while the weather last week was overrated as a factor for the most part, the one game that it did have an impact was the Miami game against Kansas City. And what we saw there was, the warm weather team going into the terrible conditions, and which were even really terrible, but was for them, and just didn't show up. Of all the teams this week that could be impacted by weather, Houston has to rank number 1 as an indoor team from the South going up and playing, grass field, probably wet, obviously cold. I think they'll be out of their element here before the game even kicks off. And then I think Baltimore is just a way, way better team. I think one of the things that you worry about, and this will come up again with other teams involved this weekend, is don't get carried away about what you just saw last week. Last week was one game, right. And Houston last week played again a team that was out of its element. Cleveland is a cold weather team, a grass team that all of a sudden went down to Houston to play in a track meet where they're not a track team. And this week the shoe's on the other foot. This week the track team is going up and running on mud. And I don't, that to me doesn't sit well. I think Baltimore, which at times has been very, very dominant this year, they're the number 1 seed. They're playing basically a 500 team. You would think, that's like having a bye. They should win this game by 3 touchdowns. And I'm not a Singletary fan. I think that he's a 4 yards in a cloud of dirt guy. Doesn't catch any passes. And I don't see Houston running the ball effectively against Baltimore. Houston's going to have to throw the ball. And like you mentioned, there's no Tank Dell, there's no Noah Brown. So much of him. Collins is a great receiver. I mean, fortunately, they still have him, and Stroud is remarkable. But I just don't see that being enough to overcome what I think is a vastly superior team. I think Baltimore is going to win this game rather handily. An interesting side note on this game, if you're looking at the season trends or whatever, Houston allowed more rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks than any other team. And that's not good in this matchup. And so I think that Jackson, should have a nice game running the ball, should have a nice game passing the ball. I do agree with, your initial assessment that I don't see this being an incredibly high-scoring game, just because I think Baltimore's defense can stand up to Houston's offense. And so, I'm not crazy about saying, well, green light for, all these offensive guys. But that said, I think that Jackson, to me, stands out as somebody who really should have a nice game here.
All right, let's look at the Jackson numbers. Since you brought them up, we'll see where our break-even points are. So Lamar's even money for a touchdown. For 2, he is 7-1. And then on his rushing prop, he is at 50.5. So what do you like the best out of those 3? The straight-up touchdown?
I mean, I think that 2 touchdowns is reasonable. I think that, that fits really nicely on a greedy ticket. 1 touchdown, I would have expected minus 250 on that. I think. Oh,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's far and away the most likely guy to score a touchdown in this game. Yeah, I know they use Edwards down by the goal line a lot, but like I said, I mean, not only does Jackson score a lot of touchdowns, but this is a team that's given up, for whatever reason, given up a lot of TDs to quarterbacks, and you think, well, they're in the same division as the Eagles. Of course, they gave up a lot of touchdowns to quarterbacks. They gave up 4 quarterbacks. No, they're not in the same division with the Eagles. They're in the same division with Tannehill and the Jacksonville guy, and the Colts, Minshew. I mean, they're in a division with, Lawrence, Tannehill, and Minshew. Those guys have combined for 1 rushing touchdown all season. So the year-long stats say that Jackson should be a better than even money chance to score a touchdown. So I'll go with that on my my non-greedy ticket. But I'll take a shot with Jackson to score 2 touchdowns on a greedy ticket.
You also get plus 230 on a first half touchdown.
Yeah, I'm tired of these. So much of the of that kind of play is luck. Who gets the ball first?
Right.
That gets the third or the fourth possession that maybe the other team doesn't get. I hate it when you've got a guy scoring a first half touchdown, and next thing you know, they've lost the toss or whatever. They kick off, and the other team has the ball for the first 7 minutes. It's like, crying out loud, we're 25% of the way done with the half, and we haven't even touched the ball yet. It just puts a lot of pressure on. Oh man, we got to score this time. It's got to, I'd rather, so much of quarterback scoring TDs are, fluky in the sense that, he throws a 55-yard pass to Flowers. Oh, they tackle him at the 1-yard line, or they get inside the 10 because the quarterback fumbled and we recover. Now it's 1st and goal at the 8, and now we fake a handoff and run around the end. I mean, this is how quarterbacks tend to score their touchdowns. I mean, obviously Jackson has a little more skill than that, but I'd rather not put fences around that. Let's give them the whole game, to get one of these lucky breaks or two of these lucky breaks that set up the touchdowns. If on Texas' side, I think Texas is going to have to throw the ball in order to be successful in this game. Obviously, Stroud throws for 300 yards basically every game, especially if they're behind. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a nice passing game. And like I said, Collins is a guy who he throws to a ton. And
Marlon Humphrey either back there, actually.
Yeah, so, right. I think that, a guy is, when I watch these games, I'm thinking about next year's fantasy football draft, right? And I would say that I've already come up with my, rule number one of next year's fantasy football draft, and that is draft a Texan. I think Texans are going to have a really good offensive team next season. It's going to be interesting to see what they do at running back, whether they go back to Pierce, who I think is a far better back than your guy.
One of the great mysteries of the year, actually, what happened to Damian Pierce.
And then, you get Brown back, you get Tank Dell back, you've got Collins, and then you've got this real wild card in Mechie. And he seems to be coming around. He would be a nice sleeper touchdown play in this game. I think that with the defense, you've got to be all over Collins. He's looking for Collins on 50%, if not more, of his pass attempts. I think Mechie is one of these guys, kind of like Jameson Williams, who I've gushed over all year, never really did all that much. Mechie is one of these guys who, he can turn that 20-yard pass across the middle into a 70-yard touchdown, with the best of them. When you're only getting one or two look a game, what are the chances it's going to happen? I think in a game like this, as probably their number 2 wideout, he's going to get 5 or 6 looks in this game, and he could turn one of those into a touchdown, especially if, as I project, Baltimore's got a nice lead going into the fourth quarter of the game. So, on my greedy ticket, I take a shot with Mechie scoring a touchdown. He's got to have real nice number, right?
Plus 600.
There you go.
Plus 600.
That nothing says greedy like plus 600.
The other long shot ones that kind of stuck out in the weird way to me, Damian Pierce is all the way down to 13-1 for a touchdown. That's kind of crazy. Let's see. Brevin Jordan, who scored last week, is plus 850. And then CJ Stroud, who did have a designed run by the goal line, and the Ravens have to know that after the film last week. 10-1 for a touchdown as well. And he does seem to be running it a little more. His rush prop, just 8.5. Now, I could see that going over as well because he's been scrambling a lot more now that it matters in the playoffs.
Yeah, and which is something we talked about last week with Gibbs. His receiving total, which went way over the number last week.
Yeah, he's amazing.
So many of these props are based on what he's done over the course of the season. And if you look at Stroud's season, man, there are a ton of games where he ran the ball either once or twice. It's just not a part of their game plan. But like you said, when push comes to shove here late in the season, there's less concern about our franchise quarterback getting injured, because if he does get injured, big deal. We're not playing next week anyway. Have surgery and be ready for next year. I just think that I think you're right. I think that Stroud, is far more likely to carry the ball 3 or 4 times this game. And if he does, he's going over that, 8.5 yards. You get that by accident.
All right, let's get to the next game. All right, so you're going to be with everyone that I've said basically this week. It's going to be easy as that. Let's go lay down on a fortune on the Ravens minus 9.5. It'll be a walk in the park. Let's see. All right, next game is a very similar game in terms of the point spread and the way it's going. It's not the number one seed. Your guys out there in San Francisco against Green Bay. And here's the deal at the end of the day. I knew this before even mind investigating, but that Dallas team last week was definitely not prepared for a playoff game, and the 49ers are not going to make that mistake here. Now, Purdy, you can put him in that same boat where he has not played in 3 weeks. So he's going to have to come on out here after having some time off. It looks like we could have some rain in the forecast. I'll let you expand on that some as well. But an interesting game here. I fully expect the 49ers to be able to get their points. I don't think that's a question. I think they're going to do fine at home. I'm just wondering if the Packers can try to play catch up and at least try to make this competitive as long as they possibly can. And if Purdy just does somehow have a couple of mistakes or two, capitalize on those, and then that gives them a puncher's chance as well. Jordan Love playing as good as any quarterback here in recent weeks. The Niners are rested. That probably does that team very, very well. And they've negotiated their way into the playoffs, being, for the most part, fully healthy at this point. And that's the 49ers team that we're going to be worried about the most here in the regular season, as if that they were fully healthy, that they're going to be a very, very tough out. Again, you're looking at it from the outside in, it just looks like a tough spot for Green Bay here. And I think the Packers are going to have to try to play catch up. 50.5 seems like a lot of points as well, but the Packers can't get any success, then they're just going to get McCaffrey to death here, and that's going to keep this under as well. I want this to be a fun game. I would love to see the Packers and their variety of weapons kind of come on out here and say that we can hang in this game. They are the youth team. The 49ers are the experienced team. So we'll see how you feel about this, Dave. 49ers, Packers. I just think 9.5 why do I just think these favorites are going to get pounded by the public here? And that's when these dogs are going to either kick the back door in or, the NFL does pull off these shockers with upsets as well. Not many people thought the Packers could beat the Cowboys last week. And I'll say that too. The recourse of that at the end of the day was all about Dallas losing it, how bad Dallas was, and not very much credit to the Packers winning that game. I mean, that's just kind of an interesting take I have as well on that. So maybe still a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I think the Packers are going to be able to get some points. I think the 49ers probably get some more. I'm going to be weary of laying a big number here. And I do think at the end of the day, this is a higher scoring game. But it's not going to shock me if this is a 31-10 49er game either. So where do you lie on this one, Dave?
Well, they are expecting rain here tomorrow and even later today. No blue skies here today. And, it won't be cold. And I doubt it's going to be real heavy rain, but there will be rain. I don't really necessarily think it's going to be impact the game because, again, unlike the Houston game at Baltimore, if it rains here and it's 50 degrees, Green Bay is going to think it's summertime. And so I don't think that's going to be a big factor. I think what could be a factor in this game is McCaffrey. Now, when last seen, McCaffrey had a calf injury. Now, this is a guy who's had a career of getting hurt. And yeah, it's been 3 weeks now since he had that injury. I've seen guys miss 6 weeks with calf injuries. I'm not sure he's 100% for this game, and I'm not sure that with the weather a little colder than they're used to here at practice and at the game, he just might have tough time loosening up. He'd certainly be more susceptible to getting injured again. I'm not I'm not sure he can be counted upon to be the big difference maker in this game that some people think he could be. And obviously, if he's not 100%, then this game takes a completely different look. Because I think that, what you don't realize is the similarities between the coaches in this game. The brilliant offensive minds who are going back and forth. It was, to me, the most shocking part of last week's game against Dallas was how wide open the Green Bay receivers were. You just don't see that much in an NFL game, although you do see it a lot in 49er games. I mean, Shanahan is great at scheming, but I think he meets his match in this game. I think his counterpart here is just as good, at scheming. I think that he's got actually more weapons at his disposal than Shanahan does, with all the receivers Green Bay had, with Jones coming out of the backfield and Jones being healthy, and now a quarterback who's able to move the ball around. I'm shocked that the line is so high. I can understand that. All right, a lot of people have the 49ers in future tickets. The books have to try to get, some of their money back. They know everybody's going to be jumping on the 49ers here. You got to jack the price up and hope people will take Green Bay. And there's a lot of that behind the scenes going on, I'm sure. But this team just went to Dallas and did something no other team came close to doing this year. Was it fluky? I didn't see flukiness to that game. Like you said, why is it that everybody's saying, "Oh, Dallas, they just laid down. They were ill prepared. They were terrible." Well, some of that is kind of true, but they've been beating everybody by 3 touchdowns at home. They should be able to lay down and be ill prepared and still beat Green Bay by 7 points. They lost that game by 3 touchdowns. They were never in that game, and I just think that, wow, if you can go into Dallas and do that, that's a tougher place to play and win than San Francisco. I don't see why they can't come here and at least be competitive. Like you said, they should be able to score points in this game. They've got this great offensive-minded coach and a quarterback that's red hot, and all his receivers are healthy or getting healthier. And then plus, like I said, you've got the other team's star player who is, probably going to be fine, but may not be at 100%. And if he's not, then that's just another reason to think that Green Bay can compete in this game. So I'm not going to be shocked if Green Bay wins this game. Certainly if they play like they did last week, they'll win this game. And the key is going to be, which team can get to the quarterback, can pressure the young quarterback into making the big mistake. The 49ers, you would think, would have the edge in that. They've got a great defensive line. They've got a great pass rush. Obviously, you got Bosa. You would think that 49ers would be more likely to force Love into a mistake than Green Bay would force Purdy into a mistake. But, all it takes is one guy getting through the line and creating that kind of, a turnover that even in a high-scoring game, could be the difference between winning 31-28 or losing, 34-31. So I think Green Bay's got a shot in this game.
All right. How about in terms of that total with the rain? I mean, I see Green Bay. I mean, they played in a bunch of bad weather games, I feel like. I think whatever card they're dealt, they'll be fine, or they'll be fine. In the 49ers, have they really played in a bad weather game? I know they played in that Cleveland game. I'm trying to recall if that was rainy. I think it was a rainy game that day, right? When they lost to Cleveland.
It was. By 49er standards, that was a bad weather game. Yes.
That was a bad weather game. Yeah, I mean, and at some point, Green Bay does have all that talent. I mean, we played up the 2 tight end angle last week, and that actually kind of came true. Both the tight ends had success for Green Bay last week. They have a ton of receivers. I'm not sure how many weeks in a row Wicks has a touchdown now. It has to be at least 3, maybe 4. Do you see the points here? 50.5? I mean, it sounds like an over to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see. I mean, the only way in my mind that it's not going to be over is if the game is really close. And like that, the Rams game against the Lions, that you see teams kind of tightening up. Let's not make a mistake. Let's throw a bunch of short passes. Let's kick field goals. And all of a sudden, the game that, as you noted, should have been away and over, turns into an under. And I think that, this game, halftime is going to be 17-14. End of the third quarter is going to be, 27 to 21, and then come down to the fourth quarter. And next thing you know, there's, punting, there's a field goal, and the game ends up 27-24. You lose by half a point or whatever. I think another interesting aspect of this game, and this is one of those obscure props that we've talked about earlier in the year. But this is a rare occasion, I think anyway, I could be fooled, where which team's going to have the ball first. Green Bay surprised everyone by winning the toss and taking the ball first against Dallas. I don't think there's any question that Green Bay would do the same thing in this game if they got the choice. I think the 49ers are like most teams. In fact, Shanahan was actually asked this week if he's ever taken the ball first in a game in his career. And he says, yeah, I think I did that once in the preseason. So it's like they win the toss, they're not taking the ball. And Green Bay wins the toss, they are taking the ball. So you know who's going to have the ball first. So in terms of, which team will score first, or who will score the first touchdown, or who will score the most, first point. Well, you got to take a Green Bay guy, and if they're going to have the ball first. I just think that it's like who's going to win the coin toss? It's 50-50. Who really knows? But what if you knew that it's kind of two-headed coin? If you knew that going in, well, then all of a sudden, who's going to win the coin toss? Man, where do I line up to make a bet on that? This is one of those occasions where something that's different than, that basically in any other game that you've seen all year. And you wonder if the odds makers even are aware of this, even give any kind of thought to this. Because, you ask of, the average fan, who's going to score the first points in this game? Well, you think the 49ers are a 10-point favorite. Obviously, I'm going to take a 49er. All right, give me McCaffrey. Okay, well, we got to make him the even money favorite. Or give me, Moody, the kicker. All right, we got to make him, plus 250. And then the Green Bay guys become afterthoughts. Well, that's not the way. I mean, sure, 49ers could be the first ones to score points in this game, but Green Bay is going to have the ball first, which significantly increases their chances of having, of that guy being a Packer. Anyway, I digress here, but it's an interesting angle on this game that they offer odds on so many things these days that you just wonder sometimes, do they really, pay that close of attention to something like this, or are they just putting lines out there because they know the public will immediately take McCaffrey or take the 49er kicker, and not even adjust the lines for something that I'm pretty confident is going to happen. So anyway, that's my side note on the game. I would say in terms of the game itself, I think that Jones to me, is the most likely guy from Green Bay to score a touchdown.
Yeah, he's the hot hand. Let's give it to him in the red zone.
Hot hand,
reliable.
And he's right. 49ers give up a lot of passes to backs. It's a way to slow down the pass rush. Throw your little quick screen to the back. You've got the best catching back in the entire league. He's healthy. And clearly last week they overused him. But they put the ball in his hands, way more than anybody else in that game. And here, again, my concern about this game is the 49ers pass rush could be a big factor here. Well, you know what? I mean, the Green Bay coaches, as smart as they are in terms of scheming, I just think he's going to throw the ball more to the back in this game than they usually do with Jones. I would look at Jones's passing, receiving yards in this game, and Jones to score a touchdown. As to me, I think that's going to be the two, best plays in this game in terms of value.
Aaron Jones, 17.5 is his over-under for his receiving yards.
Oh, my goodness. I mean,
that's a layup.
You don't need to say anymore.
And then his touchdown is plus 110. First touchdown plus 750. If you think the Packers are going to drive down and get a touchdown when they get the ball first. In fact, you're getting good numbers on the first touchdown scores on the Packers. 15-1 for Jaden Reed.
That's what I'm saying.
20-1 for Wicks. 26-1 for Watson.
I think that, on a greedy ticket or whatever, I would take a shot with one of those, or at least one of them. I mean, just take a stab.
Right.
Even the Green Bay kicker, scoring the first points, whatever it is. But I just think that, that to me is an indication that, man, they're not putting a whole lot of thought into these lines.
Wow. Jordan Love, 50-1 for the first touchdown. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So I just think that, and you're Mr. Obscure, greedy, the greediest of the greedy. Right. You'll find something there.
I'm waiting for first quarter touchdown scores to pop on the board eventually one of these weeks. But go ahead.
Right. So, your parlay of love to score the first touchdown to, something in a game on Sunday that we'll get to later on. But to me that's worth a couple of bucks just to pay for your next 10 plays. But to me, the 49ers, I think that Green Bay's had success slowing down tight ends. They didn't last week, but last week, Dallas threw the ball 60 times. I'm not really sure they were really, concerned about their pass defense in the fourth quarter of that game. But I think that Ayuk and Samuel would be, logical 49ers to score touchdowns in that game if you wanted to go in that direction. But me, I'm taking Jones over the 17.5 receiving yards. That's going on my non-greedy ticket. All
right, so we're going to I got him with Lamar Jackson touchdown, Aaron Jones over 17.5 receiving yards. Hey, how about this? Now this is greedy, but man, I mean, how do you not put $5 on this? The first touchdown, Jordan Love. First touchdown, C.J. Stroud. $5 pays $11,725.
No way. No, you've miscalculated that.
No, that's what it's coming out as. That's crazy. You almost have to put at least $1 on it just out of principle alone.
But that's kind of my point. Is I think that yes, you'll find it's worth throwing $5 on a couple of things like that, just to hit one, or even hit the first half of one. And oh man, imagine the excitement of going into the second game. There's the coin toss. Come on, Green Bay, get the ball first, like we expect. Okay, they got it. Oh man, can I cash out? Anyway, that's
$600 off of $5 for an anytime touchdown for the two of those guys. Yeah, I mean, if you think that the quarterbacks lay it all on the line here and then step it up a notch, then, I mean, why not just throw $1 or $2 on there, I guess. The other thing you could do is round robin those and take one for any time and one for the first and kind of get a kind of a crazy payout that way.
Let's not throw too much money away.
Yeah, right.
But
we got more bets to get to. But yes.
Yeah, right. We got 2 more games to talk about. So,
All right, so overall, at the end of the day, Dave Del Grande says don't be shocked if his hometown 49ers lose to the Packers in a higher scoring game. Okay. The next game, Sunday, Buccaneers and the Lions, a team going indoors. Now, first instincts on this one is that this has a chance I think this has a chance to go to overtime, to be honest. But I'm going to interested to see what you think about all this. Okay, said it all year. The Buccaneers, this team coming in, they're a veteran team. Baker's finally getting love from everyone. Everyone who hated Baker Mayfield seems to love him at this point. That's one thing. The Bowls has that defense playing nicely. And yeah, Tampa Bay, they do things like only beat Carolina 9-0. All right, so they're very susceptible to not looking like a good team at times as well. And last week on the show, I think I compared them to like your grandma's Cadillac that looks really nice, drives good on the interstate, and then clunks out in the neighborhood. So they at any time they can fall apart for sure. But what concerns me here on the Lions end, and I love the Lions in the trench, I really, really do, but their back end on defense is, I don't even know if atrocious is the right word. I think they're actually beyond that. If you go down, and I don't have it, but if you go down against the receivers that they played all year long, they have given up 1 million yards to receivers all year long. The one kid has given up, I need to get his name, but he's given up touchdowns, I think, in 7 or 8 weeks in a row here. They tried to hide him from Puka last week, and then he still got exploited. So that being said, Buccaneers kind of kicking the octane up a little bit on offense against Philly. Baker's has no problems going back there throwing the ball. I think Tampa Bay has a chance through the air for sure. Now, the Lions, they're going to have this crowd on their side. I think that's going to be the advantage again. And if all the teams, I think home field advantage is a big one for the Lions. I mean, big that they're playing here in the divisional round at home and they're not on the road somewhere. All right. So they can thank the Packers, I think, for that at the end of the day, if I'm correct. Otherwise, they could be at Dallas this week. So the fact that they have Tampa Bay at home, you would think that that's, in their mind, their best case scenario. Campbell does a great job, very relatable to the players. They play hard for him. Goff has been good. When he gets protection, he's fantastic. And that's the key, is getting that protection. Tampa Bay not necessarily known for their pass rush until maybe kind of late a little bit here in the season. They've had to kind of put that together here. But my Buccaneers, I think, again, have a puncher's chance because I'm not so sure the Lions secondary can actually stop them. And they are some talented players that they're going to have to defend. I think this could be a big game for Godwin, actually, because he's going to be the, once you try to take Evans away, then there's Godwin to try to kill you. I think Otten at tight end could have a good game for Tampa Bay. And you mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs earlier for Detroit. I mean, that guy is fantastic. And I would expect him, again, to have another great game. I would expect the Lions to be able to do what they've been able to do on offense. But it's going to be kind of scary for them. They're going to have to play mistake-free because I think they definitely can get burned in that secondary. I think 6.5 is too many points here. I think the Lions probably do find a way to win because I think they do have a little bit of a storybook kind of season thing kind of going on. If there's like a Disney movie about a team who's going to be successful and maybe win it all, I think you throw the Lions kind of into that motif. But the Buccaneers can definitely wreck that product for sure. if the Lions are just that bad defensively. I expect points here. I expect the crowd to be the difference maybe at the end of the day. Maybe a couple false starts at bad times for Tampa Bay will stunt a drive or two, and that may be the difference in the game. If it goes to overtime, that's not going to shock me. But I think 48.5 is too low. I really, really do. And maybe the game plan for the Lions, and we mentioned it before, they do like to try to run it, will be to try to keep the Tampa offense off the field. So it'll be interesting to see if Tampa's able to hold up against the run in that regard. So I guess if they do have that big success, it's not going to shock me if they go under. But I'm going to expect Detroit to be able to get their points. And when Tampa gets their hands on the ball, I think they're going to find some success through the air as well. So give me the over in this one as my favorite play. What do you like?
I agree with basically everything you said there. I think that, to me, a big player in this game, a big key, is Laporta. Tampa's given up a lot of yardage to tight ends, a lot of receptions to tight ends over the year. But Laporta, you would think normally, would take advantage of that. I mean, before he got hurt, they were throwing the ball to him as much as the St. Brown almost. But then he got a serious injury. And last week, yes, he came back and played last week, but he was not effective. And then you saw the big knee brace he was wearing. I'm not sure that changes at all. I mean, to me, the knee brace he was wearing is an indication that this guy's having surgery first thing, the morning after they lose their next game. I don't think he can be effective at all in this game. And one of the reasons I was so big on Gibbs receiving yardage last week is that he, in essence, becomes their tight end, their short yardage guy. And when I saw that Laporta was playing last week, I thought, oh no, that kind of shoots my theory there. But then as the game went along, I thought, okay, well, Laporta's just basically a statue out there. And they threw the ball to Gibbs, not a ton, but enough to go way over his total. I think the same will be true this week. Again, you haven't seemed susceptible to throwing the ball in the short zones. I think Gibbs will be, and like you mentioned, Gibbs is a human highlight reel when he gets the ball in his hand. So he's someone you want to get the ball to anyway. But in this situation where if you can't throw the ball to Laporta 7 or 8 times, maybe you just throw to him 2 or 3 like last week. Excuse me. Then that just means 5 more balls are thrown to Gibbs. And again, during the season, his receiving totals don't look great, but the situation here, like last week, dictates that he gets the ball a lot more often than he normally would. I'm guessing once again, his receiving total is going to be real low.
24.5.
Yeah, which is higher than last week, but still not high enough.
Yeah, that's not high. He'll get into the 40s easily.
Right. So I like that. And now, but I do agree with what you said about Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is not going to run the ball at all in this game. I didn't realize until they mentioned it like 11 different times on the telecast last week how bad Tampa was at running the ball this season.
Right, yeah.
And, here I am touting Rashawn White week after week after week and not realizing this is the worst rushing team in the league. Well, that's because White got all their carries. And, at 2.5 yards.
And he'll catch them too, though.
Well, when you carry the ball 20 times, you get 50 yards rushing, and then he catches the ball 7 or 8 times. I mean, so, I got not making any apologies here. I mean, he had probably a top 10 year as far as fantasy running backs. But that said, they're not going to beat Detroit running the ball. They're going to, and they won't have to, because like you said, Detroit is not good at defending the pass. I think that Evans, should have a really big game here. And I agree with you about Godwin. I mean, you got to know going in that they're going to try to get the ball to Evans as much as possible. And that should open up Godwin underneath. Obviously, Otten last week, they threw a ton to him as well because the matchups dictated that. But I think both those receivers, have a chance for, really good games. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them went over their yardage totals. I think Evans is the most logical guy on Tampa to score a touchdown. And like you said, this is a game where both teams should score 3 touchdowns. I don't think this is going to be 38-35, but this game really should be 28-27, 28-24. I think it's going to go over the total, like you said. And if, in an over game, give me the guy who I think is most likely to score a touchdown. And certainly on Tampa's side, I think that's Evans.
All right. So is that your non-greedy play overall?
Well, let's look at some numbers.
All right. Receiving yards. I just want to go over the Tampa guys because they're all kind of appealing to me. Evans is 70.5. Godwin 63.5. Cade Otton seems low at 29.5. This guy seems low. And on the theory that you have new stars born kind of every playoffs, you have these guys coming out of nowhere. I mean, why not someone like Trey Palmer? 17.5 is his over-under. He had that long touchdown reception last week against Philly. Rashad White, 22.5. That seems low, to be honest, as well. Touchdown-wise for the scores, Gibbs is minus 125. Evans is at even money, plus 100. St. Brown's is there at plus 100. Godwin is at plus 210. Otton plus 360. Montgomery's minus 120. Rashad White minus 115.
I agree with you. There does seem to be a lot of things that I like there. I think the two that I like the most, and what would Evans be for 2 TDs?
Yes. Let's see.
Based on what we got,
you good here. Let's see here. 2 touchdowns for Mike Evans will be. I might have to do a greedy one with Lamar Jackson, Aaron Jones, and then Mike Evans here at plus 650 for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
a little better than that maybe, but that's fine.
Right, and they're going to throw to him down by the goal line, and so I think on a non-greedy ticket, I think that Evans, TD, and I think that Gibbs receiving yards both belong on there. On the greedy end, I think Evans 2 TDs is a really nice play.
All right. So Gibbs over receiving yards, 24.5. I'm going to put that with Lamar Jackson touchdown and Aaron Jones over 17.5 receiving. I do love these running backs on their receiving props.
And Evans TD.
And an Evans touchdown.
Right.
All right.
So,
all right. Got it listed down. Anything else I like? Let's see. Baker passing props. Let's take a look at that. 260.5 for him. Man, that might be right at the end of the day, but I would lean over for sure.
I would too. And what that does, it if in fact Detroit is a touchdown, is a touchdown better than Tampa Bay at the end of the day, and Detroit maybe is ahead in this game most of the way, that just means more passing from Tampa. The better chance that he's only got 220 yards. There's 2 minutes to go in the game. Detroit's ahead by 17, and he throws the ball, 60 yards on the last meaningless drive. You get to 280. There's a lot of scenarios I can see where even if he doesn't have a huge game for 60 minutes, which I think he could, just one last nice drive meaningless drive with 2 minutes to go that takes him from 220 yards to 280 while nobody's watching anymore. Right. That can get you over that total as well. So, and again, it's the odds say it's very possible Detroit's going to be ahead by, a touchdown, maybe 2, come late in the game. And so that's, becomes a factor. Can they, not only can they get that late touchdown to cover a spread, but can they get that late touchdown if they need it for an over? Can they get that late touchdown to get Baker over his passing yards, to get Evans that last TD. I think that, it's nice to have that safety net. And one thing, one other thing that you mentioned that I would caution you on is the overtime aspect of this game. I do think this game is going to be very close. I think Detroit's going to find a way to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lost this game. But in terms of going to overtime, here's my problem with that. The Detroit coach.
Right.
They're down.
He's going to go
7,
for 2 or something.
Big score with 10 seconds to go, and let's go for 2. Like, oh my God, I came this close to getting my overtime bet to win, and then this buffoon is going to go for 2. And so that would be my biggest concern there. But I do think this is going to be should be a very close game.
Okay, all right, 10-4. All right. So close game, won't surprise you if Tampa wins, and we go over the total here. So 2 overs and an under so far. And let's get to this next game with Kansas City at Buffalo, over under 45.5, Bills minus 2.5. I'm going to put this in the category of why have I seen this play out before in past years? Not necessarily with these two teams, but here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a Chiefs team that I've been down on all year long. For the most part. Yet here they are. They're in the divisional round of the playoffs. They get a win last week at home. They get a Buffalo team who they're missing their fair share of players in the secondary as well. I mean, if there's a secondary to be concerned about or a defense to be concerned about this week, I think it's the Buffalo defense, to be honest. Maybe just simply running out of gas at the end. To use just kind of an analogy, this Buffalo team that seems to be like a freight train at times with Josh Allen and crew. I mean, they've done very well to rally themselves to that AFC East title. They get a win last week against Pittsburgh, but they paid for it physically. They lost players. And here comes Kansas City, Taylor Swift Nation, although she's on tour in Asia, so she will not be at the game. We know that weather does not matter for either one of these teams. So 25 degrees and 15-mile-per-hour winds is not going to be a big deal, I don't think, in either case, to be honest. Mahomes has never played on the road in the playoffs. So that's interesting to me. So either one of two things is going to happen here. The Buffalo Bills team that I would love to see personally end up in the Super Bowl is either going to have enough firepower with Josh Allen and this Kansas City offense, who's been very lackluster at times, is going to run out of opportunities, even against this Buffalo defense, and not be able to get the job done, and Buffalo does advance, or Patrick Mahomes can completely exploit what's going on the Buffalo side of the ball defensively all day long. Josh Allen makes a mistake or two, and wow, here we go again. The Chiefs are in the AFC Championship game. Why do I have a feeling it's going to play out in the favor of the Chiefs? That being said, I am definitely rooting for Buffalo in this game. I did do first initial bets on the Bills, but the more I'm just thinking about how Mahomes, much like against Miami last week, didn't really have much resistance in terms of being able to move the ball and score enough points to actually just win this game. But maybe they should have even been a little bit better than that, to be honest, when you think back at that about it. I think the Bills score their points at home. I think the Chiefs score their points on the road. I think it could be an over game. I think over 45.5 could be too low here in that aspect. Now, I'm just going to put it like that. I think the Bills can score enough points at home, but I don't know if they're going to stop Mahomes here, even with the bad weapons of wide receiver. Rice has been better. This could be a big Kelsey game, too, for sure. I mean, this could really be the game that he breaks out from his slump, and he saw signs of that here in the last week anyway. So here we go, same old song and dance. Patrick Mahomes, just when you're about ready to count him out, you can't yet. Here he is. Can Josh Allen and the Bills win this game at home, Dave, or are the Chiefs going to ruin the day and they're going to find their way into the championship game?
Well, first off, I'm never wrong. Okay, and so either I'm right, which is because I'm brilliant, or it appears that I'm wrong, but actually it was fluky. And if you have a chance to bet against that happening a second time, you do that. Last week I made a big to-do about these teams not being able to flip the switch come playoff time. The Eagles and the Chiefs had terrible seasons. They were not going to be able to flip the switch. They were both going to lose last week in games where they were favored. And in fact, if you had played, a straight up bet on each of the opponents plus the money, not plus the points, but at the underdog price, you would actually made a little bit of money just because I got a split there. But I was right because I was on the Eagles because, like I said, I'm brilliant. I was wrong on the Chiefs because of the weather. I mean, Miami just did not show up for that game. I don't think Kansas City, all of a sudden you can say they're an elite team because they beat Miami handily last week. That was, you mentioned this in the Green Bay Dallas game. I mean, so much people are saying, well, Dallas lost that game, Green Bay didn't win it. And I don't necessarily agree with that. What I would say in this case, without a doubt, Kansas City did not win that game.
Miami lost it,
But Miami lost
good
that
point.
game.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Even
For
early
sure.
in that game.
Right.
I mean, how many times did Kelsey drop the ball in that game? Something else we saw in that game was the emergence of Rice. I mean, maybe I'm late to the party here. The emergence of Rice as a clear number one receiver, or at least number one wideout for Kansas City. But what it also showed me is he's got no confidence in his other receivers.
Right.
And you're right. Buffalo has a ton of injuries, especially on defense. The problem is Kansas City doesn't have the variety. They don't have a number two receiver to match up against, the injured build cornerback.
Yeah, it's still bad against bad. Right.
Right. They don't have a number three receiver to match up against the injured slot receiver defender. They can't take advantage of that stuff. I mean, Buffalo will still have enough manpower to recognize, look, we've got to pay closer attention to Rice than we have in the past. And obviously we're paying closer attention to Kelsey. We're going to let them throw the ball to the other guys. I just think Buffalo is a team that's, yes, they have a lot of injuries. Yes, like you said, is it possible that they've just run out of gas? I see no indication that they've run out of gas yet. I think they're a team that's on the rise. I think Kansas City, despite what we saw last week, is a team that's, is in decline. Yes, we've seen Kansas City beat Buffalo in these games before, always at Kansas City. Buffalo gets this game at home. I think Buffalo is going to win this game. I'm not even sure it's going to be real close. But
I would like that because I have the Buffalo alt line for sure.
Yeah, well, that said, I don't think there's going to be a ton of points scored in this game. Buffalo's offense is limited, and Gabe Davis is not playing. They already don't have a whole lot of options. They're an overrated running team, I would say. Their top receiver Diggs has not had a good season.
He missed practice too, actually.
Yeah, they do have tight ends who I think could be difference makers in this game. Certainly, they're throwing the ball a lot to Kincaid these days. I think he's someone who could he could get a key touchdown.
Knox has scored in back-to-back weeks too.
Right, in this game, but I just think that in looking at Kansas City's season stats, they've allowed the most rushing attempts by quarterbacks all season. Like, well, how do you account for that? You look at their division, right? It's like Jimmy Garoppolo or O'Donnell or whoever was quarterbacking against them wasn't running the ball against them. Herbert certainly wasn't running the ball against them. And Wilson, Wilson runs, an average amount, but he's not a big runner either. I mean, it's not like they played in the division where, well, of course they gave up a lot of rushing yards. They faced Kyler Murray twice, or they faced Lamar Jackson twice. No, they didn't face those guys. They faced quarterbacks for the most part who don't run, and only run because, the linebackers are taking too deep a drop when their pass rush is coming in. I just think that, Allen is, to me, far and away Buffalo's number one offensive weapon in this game. And he's facing a team that's been susceptible to quarterback runs. He tends to score. We've got 15 touchdowns this year or whatever. He tends to score a touchdown every week. And now he's playing a defense that's given up a lot of rushing, not only a lot of rushing attempts, but a lot of rushing yards and a lot of rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks. I mean, this, in a big game where I talked about this with Hurts last week, Allen needs to put this game on his shoulders much more so than Mahomes does. I mean, Allen's got less of a supporting cast with him than Mahomes has. And he's proven that he has the guts to do this. The bigger the game, the more likely he is to drop his shoulder down instead of sliding and take on that, cornerback, break a tackle, as, we saw him do last week and go the distance, by not sliding or faking sliding, actually.
Right.
And then, but, even last week where he didn't run the ball that effectively, he had a 57-yard touchdown run or whatever it was. And one run like that takes you over his rushing total, gets you that one touchdown that you need from him. I think he's on the team that I think is going to win this game. I think he's far and away the most likely guy to score a touchdown. And again, kind of like I said earlier about Jackson, my only fear in this game is, but you want to lay 350 on him scoring a touchdown. So give me the good news on his rushing totals.
Let's see here. Minus 115 for a Josh Allen touchdown, and now his rushing yards are at 43.5 for the baseline.
I mean, like I said, his TD should be minus 350, not minus 115. That like Jackson is too good to be true. I don't get either one of those lines.
Right.
And his rushing total, he's going to run the ball. He's going to run the ball this game 8 to 10 times because he always does, and because Kansas City allows it. And as we saw, like I said, as we saw last week, he might run for 5 here, 3 there, 7 there, but he has the potential to cut it upfield, to go for 25, on one of the carries, and just one abnormally high, long run like that gets you over your rushing total. So I like both of those.
All right. Which one do you want to throw in the non-greedy ticket?
I think the touchdown is more likely to happen.
All right. So an anytime touchdown for Josh Allen, an anytime touchdown for Mike Evans, Lamar Jackson, anytime touchdown as well. Aaron Jones over 17.5 receive yards, and Jahmyr Gibbs over 24.5 receiving yards. $100 will win you $2,373.
And I mean,
that's not too bad. I kind of like that.
No,
one.
and it's what's interesting about this is, like, if you look at these plays, and you usually ask somebody, all right, yes or no, you think, I don't even care who the opponent is, on any given Sunday, yes or no, you think Lamar Jackson is going to score a touchdown this game? Yeah, he probably will. All right, how about Allen? Well, sure, he always does. All right, how about what's his name?
Evans.
Hold on, Evans. Well, Evans, you think he'll score a touchdown in this game? Well, sure, he always does. Okay, well, there's 3 legs where, off the top of your head, you would say, well, of course they're going to score touchdowns, and then, then the other 2, you got these 2 running backs with, what I would consider to be, quite low receiving yardage, in situations where it appears that they should,
they all have
the
designed pass plays for themselves.
Get the ball at least as much as they usually do,
right,
if not more. And both are different situations. Gibbs, I think, gets more targets because Laporta is not healthy, and I think that Jones gets more targets because the Packers, first the 49ers are not good against defending running backs and catching the ball. But I do think the Packers will fear the 49er pass rush and will throw the ball, swing the ball to the back, more than they usually do, and they already do that a lot. So I think all 5 of those, like, all right, I'm playing 5 favorites here. How much
minus 115 is the
pay?
biggest price of either one of any of those.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, that's paying a really nice price. For basically playing, for what I would consider to be 5 favorites. So, but hey, that's why it's called non-greedy. You got your greedy ticket. You've got a lot. There's a lot of interesting plays on a greedy ticket. There's going to be surprise touchdowns scored in this game,
right?
By Mechie or by Kincaid, somebody, Bateman, maybe,
Trey Palmer, yes.
Yeah, Palmer. You mentioned Palmer, and I agree with you about that. The receiving total for him, man, that's for a number 3 receiver who seems to be on the rise. What could be a high scoring game. Pass defense that's kind of weak. He's an afterthought for the defense anyway. 1 catch.
Yeah, they can't even guard the guys they have out there. That's what I'm saying. He's going to be running free.
Exactly. So that sounds like a real nice play.
He's plus 580 for 50 yards if we want to rewind to that. But so that's a good price there. Random touchdown scorer for this game. Let me ask you this: do you like Kelsey's 61.5? That seems low for him.
No, I don't think. I don't see this as a high scoring game.
Right.
I see this as 2 heavyweights pounding it out. Kind of, a lot of punting. The weather. While you were right about this, the weather shouldn't really impact either one of these teams. That said, it's still got to play some kind of factor in the game, and that would tend to hold the score down. Maybe you miss field goals because it's windy, or you don't try a field goal from 50 yards because of the cold weather. You punt instead. I think there's a lot of reasons why the weather can play a factor in a total, maybe more so than in who wins or loses the game, because it affects strategies like that. You don't want to be the team that makes the mistake, so you hold the ball little firmer when you run, instead of thinking about running around a guy. I'm just going to take the hit and fall down. I don't want to be the guy that fumbles and costs the game. You fair catch on the punt because you don't want to take any chances. There's just a lot of reasons in a game like this where the weather's cold. Don't be stupid. Play conservative. They're not doing a whole lot on offense against us anyway. This has a chance to be neither team gets to 20 kind of game. So that said, I'm not gonna go overboard on taking Kansas City guys here.
Right.
To me, if I were to take a chance on one thing in this game, I would look at McKinnon, catching a couple of passes in the flat and running them for 10 yards apiece, getting his 3 catches for 25 yards, which I'm guessing is going to go over his.
Yeah, he's not even listed. But I was going to ask you about if Pacheco had a chance to get over 18.5, maybe. Which I could see a scenario of trying to get him into space because he runs so hard.
But they've gone even away from him a little bit in terms of number of touches.
I was surprised they abandoned him when they did last week, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't really understand that either. That Edwards Alaire or whatever his name is, got a lot of touches last week. Geez, Pacheco's running the ball well. Why are you going with this guy? It just seems that, I don't know, they're afraid that, he wears down late in the game or he's a fumble threat, or I don't know why they don't use him more. But the fact is that, Alaire's going to get the ball probably 5 or 6 times, and McKinnon's going to get the ball 3 or 4 times. And it just takes away from, you'd like Pacheco to get the ball, majority of those times and, pad his totals. But I take more of a shot, kind of like the Stroud rushing total. Take the shot where the number is so low. Again, I'm thinking, McKinnon here. They're going to come up with a total receiving yards for him of 18.5, right? Just take a shot where, man, all they got to do is swing it to him twice, and he gets that. With Stroud is 8.5 rushing yards or whatever. All he's got to do is scramble 2 times, and he gets that. And I'd rather take a shot with that rather than say, you really think Kelsey's going to catch 7 passes in this game with guys all over him? Yeah, he does a lot, but he hasn't had a great second half of the season. Like I said, he literally dropped 3 passes last week where I thought, what is going on with this guy? To the point where they started throwing the ball more to Rice. I think Rice probably has a better chance. They get him in the right matchups in this game, to out yardage Kelsey. I think Mahomes has confidence now, certainly in throwing the ball to Rice as much as he does throwing the ball to Kelsey. So, if he gets more targets than Kelsey, he's going to have more yards than Kelsey just because of the patterns he runs. So, but again, I just don't see this as being a really high scoring game where, or even a game where, Kansas City's going to be behind by 10 points late in the game and they'll get some cheap yardage. I wouldn't be shocked if this game were always within a touchdown. And like I said, it ended up 19-13 or, something like that.
All right. Okay. So Buffalo Bills win for you. Best play in a lower scoring game. All right. Let's play the horse racing game. I know you hate this game because the odds are never kind of what they should be in retrospect to the number of players listed. But the quarterback you would expect to have the most passing yards this weekend would be who?
Okay. Let's look at I think Stroud. I think Stroud has a chance.
He's plus 850.
To throw for 250 or more. I think that'll be more than Jackson. I think that'll be more than Goff. I think Mayfield has a chance to throw for 250 or more. I think Love certainly has a chance to throw for 250 or more. I think that Purdy probably not. And I'd say no for Allen and for Mahomes. So I think it comes down to Mayfield, Stroud, or Love. I think the safest of those 3 plays would be Mayfield. I think that the conditions, are going to be right. I think the defense he's going up against is the weaker of the 3 that we're talking about here. Chance that they could be behind in the game, which would help his rushing, his passing total. Also, the fact that I don't think they got to run the ball at all in this game. So I take him as the highest.
Plus 450 for that, if that's the guy you want to go with. Like you said, he should be a little bit better.
Who's the favorite?
Goff is plus 250, Purdy plus 460. So actually, Mayfield at plus that now these odds must have just changed because the numbers or the names are out of order, which is not usually how they do it. So Mayfield is probably taking money, and he jumped Purdy. So Mayfield's plus 450 is the second favorite.
Well, that's interesting that they, that the obvious picks, Mahomes and Allen, even Jackson, the biggest names,
Right,
aren't the guys who are getting the money at this.
Allen's 10-1 for most passing yards.
Yeah, I mean,
Interesting.
rightfully so.
Right. All right, most rushing yards this weekend.
Okay, so let's see. Let's go team by team. Not going to come from Houston. I don't think it's going to come from Baltimore. It won't come from Tampa. Montgomery, but he gives up a lot of carries, but I'll consider him. Jones, I don't think rushing, will necessarily be a big thing. McCaffrey, I'm afraid of his injury. Kansas City, no. Buffalo, no. I mean, man, where does that leave us? I'd go with Montgomery.
Montgomery's plus 950. Could someone like Justice Hill sneak in there at 60-1? He probably could, couldn't he?
He's been getting more carries than usual, but that said, so has Edwards. I mean,
Right.
they seem to be running the ball a lot. I'm surprised how much Edwards has been running the ball. I consider him more of just a goal line guy. I think they offset each other in that way. And Montgomery, he loses carries to Gibbs as well, no doubt.
Gibbs is 16-1.
Lions
That's
coach,
interesting.
The Lions coach likes to ride the hot hand, and he'll hand the ball to Montgomery 4 or 5 times in the same possession. And maybe he only gets 20 yards out of that, 25 yards. But you do that 2 or 3 times in the game, and next thing you know, he's up to over 60 yards. It's not going to take 100 yards to win this category this week. I don't think any of these guys are going for 100. In fact, there's a play you'll find somewhere. Will any back run for 100 yards this week? Take the no.
Right. Yeah. You get plus money.
Will any quarterback throw for 300 yards this week? I think there's a chance that that's going to be a no, but I would take the over on that and say, well, either Stroud or Mayfield will get there. So that's a tough one. So if McCaffrey's healthy, if the 49ers get a lead, then you would think that he'd be the obvious choice there. But also, what I'd be afraid of, if 49ers get a lead in this game, then you're going to see him come out of this game much more so than you have during the season. I think they've got to try to protect him the best they can if the game is, they feel the game is in hand. I wouldn't be surprised if at least one series each half that he's not out there. And then maybe the final, 6 minutes of the game if the 49ers are up by a couple touchdowns. So that would be my concern about him. That's why I take more of I'll take a shot with Montgomery just based on this. This is the way they're going to try to attack Tampa, by running the ball. And they might be successful doing it. And if that's the case, you're going to see a lot of Montgomery in this game.
Plus 950 for Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very nice price.
Yeah, and Gibbs at plus 1,600 is not the worst either, to be honest. Because I just feel like maybe Gibbs might be a little bit more of the game breaker. If he can break it outside, then he's gone.
Well, right, but he's in terms of rushing touches. You're talking about Montgomery getting 15 and Gibbs getting 7.
Right.
Yeah, and you're right. Gibbs is a guy who could bust one for 30 yards or 40 yards, but still, he's only going to get 7 more carries. You don't get his 5 catches, for 50 yards tacked on there. In terms of total yards, I would say, he would be the better play in my mind over Montgomery. But just in terms of rushing yards, I'm going to say, give me the guy that gets 15 touches over the guy that gets 7.
All right, in the receiving category, you have plenty of long shots with good names. But let's go ahead and have you narrow them down in your mind.
Well, okay, so you've got Collins, who's going to get a ton of
plus 550 for him.
Target.
Yeah,
and you've got Flowers, who will get a lot of
33-1 for him.
Collins. I'd rate him behind Collins. Okay, then you got Evans, who's an obvious choice. You got St. Brown, another obvious choice. Green Bay, you got too many guys. I think Samuel could have a big game again here. I would consider him. Rice is going to get a lot of targets. So those are the guys to look at. I think that Evans, to me, and Samuel, I think that they would be my top two choices. I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Samuel because he's going to have a better price.
16-1 for Debo.
I mean, that's
it is better than Evans. He's plus 850.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is more. There are more good players here that have the potential to have, as opposed to running backs, where it's very hard to envision anybody rushing for 100 yards. I think that you've got 7, 8, 9, 10 guys playing this weekend who all have the potential to get 100 yards receiving. And so give me someone with a big play potential and a high scoring game. I'll take Samuel on that, catch a couple of his short crossing routes, bust it, slippery uniform, next 60-yard touchdown. And, I think he's got the potential more so than Evans, who he'll catch touchdown passes, but from 20 yards on in. I think Samuel is the guy that could give you the 60-yarder. That at the end of the day, he's got 118 receiving yards, and he wins this competition in a photo finish.
All right. Let's see here. You're trying to have fun. Maybe you have like $2. $6 left in your account. You can take 3 guys as long shots in the receiver yards. Let's see. Would you put $2 maybe on
in receiver yards?
Yeah, leading receiver for the week.
Not receiver TD.
Yeah, receiving yards. Let's see. So guys in high scoring games where you're getting good odds. Cade Otton's 110-1. Let's say Trey Palmer again's 170-1. Jahmyr Gibbs, I'll throw him in there, 150-1 for him. McCaffrey's 130-1 if he's somehow healthy.
I'll tell you who I'd go with. Well, I won't tell you who I'd go with, but I'll tell you what I'd be looking at. I'd attempt to identify the Green Bay guy who's going to have the big
one. Right.
Because
Christian Watson, 55-1.
Question is he healthy?
Right.
He had like 1 target last week. Whatchamacallit had no targets.
Jaden Reed, 0.
Reed had 0. I mean, and if that's the case, well, you're talking about Wicks scoring all these touchdowns, and Dobbs having a monster game last week. But I just don't know. It would be interesting if Watson were healthy. That he probably would have a huge number here. But he's someone who could catch 3 or 4 balls at 20 plus yards a pop, and put himself right into the thick of that kind of a competition. So I don't. I'm looking at some of the other guys. On targets alone, well, I guess you wouldn't consider him a long shot, but Collins is someone who has to be considered in that kind of thing. But that's. I'd say pick a Green Bay guy of your liking if you want to.
Right.
The guy that has the best odds between Watson, Dobbs.
Dobbs 47-1, Reed 37-1, Wicks is 55-1.
And what's Watson?
Watson 55-1.
Well, that's. All of those are very, very nice numbers. To take a stab at. I guess
you could cargo bomb those guys. Yeah.
I'd have to go with Dobbs, even though his odds are a little lower than those other guys, just based on the fact that, well, let's assume everybody's only as healthy as they were last week. That kind of nuts and Reed out of the picture. Wicks isn't a big targets guy, so that leaves Dobbs, who had a monster game last week against the team that was supposed to have a good defense. So I'll go with that. That would be my long shot.
If they lose, who gets the most backlash from the fan base, media, etc.? Is it right there in your hometown with Shanahan and Purdy?
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, especially the way last week played out. We've been here. They've been talking all season, and I've been one of them, that this is a 3-team heavyweight battle in the NFC. You want to be the number 1 seed because number 2 and number 3 are going to have to meet in the semifinals, and you don't want to be in that matchup. I'm talking about 49ers and the Cowboys and the Eagles. And lo and behold, not only do the 49ers land in the number 1 spot, but the Eagles and the Cowboys aren't even there anymore.
Yeah, right.
And this is supposed to be the week that the 49ers play the Eagles, and you win this game, and now next week you play Dallas, and so it's like, oh man, that ain't going to be easy. And then going into the Super Bowl, going to have to beat Baltimore, who already beat the 49ers pretty bad, or Kansas City, which last year beat the 49ers pretty bad. So, I mean, I think that there was a lot of concern about who they might play. Well, now there's no more concern and if 49ers don't go to the Super Bowl, it's going to be one of the biggest disappointments here in a long time. Because the door is wide open. I mean, imagine looking ahead to next week and seeing, we're going to play either Detroit or Tampa Bay at home with a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's like, no way, to me, they're much tougher matchup as this week.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I think I'm going to reserve judgment, but I think if San Fran and Baltimore both advance fairly easy, I don't know how they don't end up playing each other, to be honest.
Well, Baltimore, I think, is different. Baltimore, I'm not convinced Baltimore is that good a team. I mean, they've had a good season, but remember, that division completely fell apart.
Right.
That division was supposed to be Cincinnati, and they, Burrow got injured. And then there was Cleveland up and coming. Great defense, and then they lost their running back and their quarterback. And then, Pittsburgh, which was always good, and they weren't as good as they usually were. I mean, the carpet rolled out, I think, for Baltimore to win that division. I mean, yeah, they've got some really nice wins on top of that, but I think the wear and tear of that division usually, takes a toll on those teams as they move forward, as opposed to Kansas City, who waltzes past the Raiders and the Broncos and the Chargers every year, and they're relatively fresh going into the playoffs. I just think, look at the 49ers as like, if they don't make the Super Bowl, it's a major, major disappointment. And then even getting there, what do you got? If Kansas City were playing up to their level, and maybe they will be by then, playing up to their level of the last couple of seasons, then that's a different story. Then all of a sudden, okay, here's that heavyweight matchup that we've been expecting. If they were to lose that game, it would be disappointing, but it wouldn't, you could understand it. But if it's not Kansas City, if it's Buffalo, or if it's Baltimore, I think that's only slightly better than, facing Green Bay and Detroit. I mean, I just think the 49ers fans saying, you mean to tell me that we can win a Super Bowl by beating Green Bay, Detroit, and Baltimore? It's kind of like when the Giants won 3 World Series back in the 2010, 2012, 2014. I still think it's one of the most amazing things when you look back at it, right? You think, who the Giants,
the Tigers,
played?
Royals, and someone else. Who are the
Rangers.
Rangers, yes.
Right. The Rangers are a little different because they've gotten better recently, but it's like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way. There is no way in the world that the Giants played the Tigers, the Rangers, and the Royals in the World Series when there's the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Astros and, God knows, all the other good teams. And this is who they played. It's like, there's no way. But yes, it's true. Well, that could be what this 49er season ends up being. I mean, they won the Super Bowl and they beat Green Bay, two teams from the NFC North, which has been a terrible division for 15 years, and then on top of that, they go into the Super Bowl and they don't even have to play Kansas City. They play Baltimore. I just think that would be incredibly disappointing. I mean, not to the point where you fire a coach or anything, but there are already enough people, and I think they're really ignorant, that Shanahan, he can't win the big one, and he's look what happened in Atlanta, and look what happened here in the Super Bowl. It's like, give me a break.
Well, Purdy will get the question marks for sure, right? People will be wondering, especially if he throws 2 or 3 interceptions.
I mean, if they lose this week, 41-38, then it's going to be hard to blame Purdy. Right. But if they do what Dallas did last week, then they're going to say, wow, all the people, all the naysayers about this game manager, this last pick of the draft guy, you knew he wasn't gonna take us there. Hindsight being 2020. But yeah, I would hope that Purdy is past that by this point. He's had enough really good games that one bad game against Baltimore, really shouldn't hang over his head. One bad playoff game, I would think you would still write that off as, crying out loud, basically a first-year starting quarterback. Well, let's regroup next year, and we'll be fine. So, but yeah, I do think that there are enough people who don't like Shanahan for whatever reason, who are kind of waiting on that bandwagon. And just want to jump him for not being able to win the big one, and that, like I said, that'll be especially loud this year if, in fact, the big one turns out to be a loss to an NFC North team or to an AFC North team not named Cincinnati or Pittsburgh. So. So it won't be nearly what you're hearing in Dallas.
Right. Okay. I don't think I've asked you this all year, but what would be your Super Bowl matchup right now then in your mind?
Well,
it sounds like you like Buffalo. Maybe the Buffalo to beat Kansas City, then you have them with a good chance to beat Baltimore, right?
Yeah,
so I would say Buffalo.
Again, I think we'll learn. Something about Baltimore. About Buffalo this week. I think certainly a big concern is their health. But if they're healthy enough to beat Kansas City, then that's fine. That means that they can then beat Baltimore. If they're not healthy, then they'll probably lose to Kansas City. We won't even have this discussion. If they win this week, that'll be an indication that, okay, they're good enough to beat Baltimore. So that I would take Buffalo in the AFC, but I do think all three of those teams still have a shot. In the NFC, and I'm from out here, but I'm not a 49er fan. But if they're 9.5-point favorites this week. What are they going to be over Detroit next week? 7.5? Or they play Tampa next week? What are they going to be then?
13.5 is what I heard.
Exactly.
Tampa, yeah.
And how can you say it's not going to be them? Like I said, I think Green Bay's got a shot this week. I don't think either team next week's going to have a shot. I mean, it would be crazy not to say the 49ers. So I'll go with 49ers in Buffalo. The Chris Berman special. Pick the 49ers in Buffalo to make the Super Bowl every year. And you get at least one of them right. So,
all right. That pays 4-1 right now if that's going to happen. All right. So, all right, Dave. A lot to digest, man. We'll have fun watching the games. Entertainment-wise, I'll just ask you this. Scale of 1 to 10, how entertaining do you expect these games to be altogether? I could see maybe a dud if it turns out, like you said, Baltimore.
No, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I hope the weather, doesn't ruin 3 of the 4 games. I think that, Houston's an entertaining team. I hope they can be entertaining against Baltimore. Green Bay, same way. They're an entertaining team. I hope they can be entertaining against the 49ers. But yet both of those games, most people are projecting blowouts there, so that could really ruin the entertainment value. And so Tampa and Detroit, very, very hard to be excited about. Even Kansas City and Buffalo, while I expect a good game, if you're not a fan of either one of those teams, bad weather in Buffalo, no thank you. So I'm going to say overall, with the chance of 2 blowouts and 2, non-attractive games, in my opinion, I'd say I'd give it a 4 on a scale of 10 in terms of my expectations of entertainment.
All right. Okay. All right. I'll send this audio clip to Roger Goodell for further rule changing in the future or something like that. All right, Dave. I appreciate it, man. Enjoy the games or try to anyway. I think you're right. I think the Green Bay San Fran one will be, I think that's the most exciting game if I'm really actually, as a fan looking at it. Give me San Fran and Green Bay. That's a good game. Should be a good Saturday night.
I agree. It should be a very, very entertaining game. And like I said, the Tampa Detroit game could be a really fun game too. And a lot because you don't have to worry about the weather there. The weather to me just kind of ruins the excitement level on some of these games. But like I said earlier, the weather wasn't a big factor last week. All the talk about postponing games and why are we playing today and, who's got the advantage. I mean, to me, Miami was certainly compromised and ruined that game. But the rest of the games, the weather was a complete non-factor, I thought. Even the Buffalo-Pittsburgh game, like, oh, man, I can't wait. Oh, they're talking, you bring your own shovels. Oh, my God, never seen anything like it. It was, it might as well have been 75 degrees there. It was just, to me, was really a non-factor. So I hope that's the case this weekend. I hope that, we don't turn on the 49er game tomorrow night. And, it's never rained this hard before in San Francisco. Oh, great. Not what we want.
Right. 4 straight unders coming at us, just like last year. All right.
What happened last year, right? A couple of these matchups don't, the totals are high, I must admit, on these games. So it's possible, but these matchups don't scream, under.
Right.
So you would expect then that at least a couple of them.
All right. We're going to take a shot on your non-greedy ticket as well. I do like that. All right, Dave. In case you're tuning in one last time, Dave's non-greedy ticket would be anytime touchdown Lamar Jackson, anytime touchdown Mike Evans, anytime touchdown Josh Allen, Jahmyr Gibbs over 24.5 yards receiving, and Aaron Jones over 17.5 yards receiving. All right, Dave. Have a good weekend, man. Enjoy it all.
Talk to you next week.
Okay. We will be right back after this. She's the one we're thinking of. That's the name of Maggie May. When we see her, what do we say? Maggie May, bring us another beer. We need another beer. Take away our troubles here. Maggie May, bring us another beer. We need another beer. Take away our troubles here. Bring us another beer. She's the one we're thinking of. That's for the name of Maggie May. When we see her, what do we say? Maggie May, bring us another beer. We need another beer. Take away our troubles here. Maggie May, bring us another beer. We need another beer. Take away our troubles here. Maggie May, bring us another beer. We need another beer. Take away our troubles here. Maggie May, bring us another beer. We need another beer. Take away our troubles here.
Dependable Solutions can provide all voiceover services for your advanced audio production needs. Think of us as an inexpensive option, no matter what the size of the project is. From one-word cameos to full script productions, contact Dependable Solutions at 757-354-5517.
Know your gambling limits. Don't ever bet what you can't cover. Wagering on sports is only fun when you do it the right way. Not every bet will win. When you get on a bad run, know it and avoid trouble. Know your gambling limits.
You said it was a waste of time. You said that I would change my mind. You said I'd lose my only chance to go and get out. It turns out you don't really know what you've been missing, my friend. And you might have her now. I got something better.
Family owned and operated, CP Shuckers Cafe and Raw Bar specializes in delicious cuisine, refreshing drinks, and a laid-back atmosphere. We opened our doors in 1995 and have enjoyed being a place to either relax or celebrate ever since. Whether you are in the mood to indulge in a great meal with your friends and family or watch the game, we promise that our inventive menu, attentive service, and skilled bartenders will have you truly satisfied. Both of our locations have spacious outdoor patios for enjoying the breeze and catching a little sun. Our friendly staff at CP Shuckers will make your next dining experience a pleasant one by delivering personal care. We are open until 2 a.m. Full menu will be served until 10 p.m. and late night limited menu until 1 a.m. For larger parties, please give the location of choice a call. Pacific Avenue, 757-425-8676 or Shore Drive, 757-412-2929. More information at cpshuckers.com. Thank you for your continued support and have a shuckin' good time.
Control your alcohol. Don't fight. Don't drink and drive. Your one punch could kill someone. It happens. If you're behind the wheel, you may think you are fine, but then the other driver is under the influence of texting, and then you are done. Control your alcohol.
Microphones are up, David. There you go. Little glitch last week on Wild Card Weekend for 60 seconds on mic number 2. But good to go right now on the round robin just after 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for listening wherever you are at in this universe. Nephew David, good morning.
Good morning.
Dave Del Grande with great insight as always. And only 3 more games to break down after today. How about that? We'll have to do a draft special that's come up on our radar. We're going to have some good spring weird stuff going on here. We'll maybe figure something out fun soon. I would love to do a spring training trip. How about that?
That would be great.
All right, let's get to the slate for today. Nephew Dave, did you do Anthony's fantasy playoffs?
I did not.
You did not. Okay.
I figured second and third was good. Let's not push the luck for this year. We'll go riding high into next year.
So you finished second and third
in
your fantasy. Dave Del Grande won his.
Nice.
Anthony won his guillotine league. And then like third in a few other leagues.
Wow.
And the guillotine's a huge one. So how about that for the studio crew in fantasy football for the year? So props haven't been the worst here on the show. Last week as well, we had some good stuff. A lot of stuff ends up cashing last weekend. We're going to be very happy with it. On the Amari Cooper yard away from a fortune in one regard, or 4 more points in the Rams and Lions game from a really big fortune. If you think of it in that aspect, not far away at all. All right, Dave. So thoughts on divisional football? We're down to the final 8. What did you think of Wild Card Weekend overall? Maybe the most surprising thing to you, and how do you approach this weekend mentally as a wagerer?
So Steve, I thought Wild Card was actually pretty good. The one thing that did surprise me a little bit is the Browns getting beat as bad as they did by
I think that's surprising. Yeah, I thought they would be a little bit better than that.
That's what I was thinking. And I mean, no disrespect to Houston. I love what they're doing and CJ Stroud and all that. But, I think the Browns had a little bit higher hopes coming into that game, and they just kind of fell flat. So give the credit to Houston, really. And I think that can maybe carry over, Steve. I'm not saying that they're going to win this game. I think it's a possibility, but I do feel comfortable with them on the spread. So I don't know. I have a kind of a feeling here. You saw the Packers dismantle the Cowboys. Can they do that to San Francisco Steve, like we mentioned, we're always talking.
That line is now up to 10 now.
Yeah, it was. See, I took it at 9.5.
Yeah.
And we're always talking, and something tells me, Steve, if you can play a ticket of Green Bay playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the NFC Championship, I think you'll get paid out pretty nice. And I think we could see that because my dog of the weekend is definitely going to be Tampa Bay. I feel like they can go into Detroit and get that win, Steve.
Ooh, all right. Interesting. All right, so let's go through the slate, and we'll do some NHL as well. We'll pop a little bit of that here at the end of the show, and then we'll get on out of here. Ant-Man to be determined. I've known that they were, let's say, they were studying for fantasy drafts last night, deep into the night.
Right.
The Baltimore Ravens and the Texans, 9.5, 43.5 here. All right, so Del Grande likes the Ravens in the lower scoring game. I like the opposite. I like the Texans in a higher scoring game, I think. So I see scenarios for sure where Baltimore manhandles them and wins this game. They're the home team. They're rested. They look like they're dominating. They're ready to go. And Houston, nice little playoff. We got one nice little playoff win. It's time to exit. I know we have a rookie quarterback, rookie coach, and that's it. Plus injuries have mounted up at wide receiver. So, we're just kind of running out of steam anyway.
Right.
All right. So I do see that scenario kind of playing out potentially in my head as well. But for the fun sake of things, I'm going to take CJ Stroud in Houston in this game. And honestly, the NFL definitely throws wrenches into the turbine all the time in the playoffs. The number one seed, now I think last year both the number one seeds made it. But traditionally, it's never number one versus number one.
Right.
It's always different. All right. So you always got to keep that in mind for sure. You can do your own research on that. The seedings of ones versus ones. Now, that being said, it's hardly ever like a 6 versus a 7. All right. There's always at least one team in there that is worthy, like a number 2 seed or whatever. I think a couple of years back, there was like a 4 versus a 4 or something like that. As far as the seedings go, I forget which Super Bowl that would be. So if you look at that in that aspect, you do have the Ravens who are number 1, and what the Texans are here, number 4 seed. Okay, so that kind of gets them in the ballpark still. Now, like I said, if the NFL is going to rear its ugly head and just throw a wrench into the turbine of what everyone's seen and what everyone's been thinking, I mean, just look how bad Dallas looked. Not saying that's how the Ravens are going to be prepared like this week. But why not this game? Why can't that wrench just get thrown into the turbines of this game to screw it all up? And Stroud capable. Now, the coach, Ryans, I mean, I have to think he's going to have a good game plan on defense as well. I mean, they made great adjustments to Cleveland last week. Flacco was finding some early success. Then once they found their receivers, he didn't have anyone to throw to, and he got sacks. Now, we know Lamar's elusive. He can get away from a defense. That's what makes the Ravens the dangerous team that they are at the end of the day, is that he's always going to be a threat, just kind of like Josh Allen is as well up in Buffalo. So I can just see it from both sides of the coin here. It's not going to shock me either way. At the end of the day, if that's what I'm saying, I just think 43.5 is going to be too low.
Right.
So I'm going to think this is an over game. What scares me is all the heavy money is coming in on the under, Dave. I said this earlier in the show. How about this? Let me refresh this to make sure this is current, because we do have movement all day. But basically, it's a split with the bets with the spread. A little bit, a hair more money on the Texans. Nothing to be alarmed about either way. The bigger bets, just a little bit in favor of, well, more tilted towards the Ravens. Still, the dominant bets are on Houston, just by a little bit. Not much to be alarmed about. But this is an interesting one. All the smaller bets, 56% of them to 44%, it's in favor of the over. Now, this is changing. More money is coming in on the under, because this was a little different this morning. And a whopping 70% of the money with the bigger bets is coming in on the under in this game. So all 4 games did go under last divisional playoff last year. So, this kind of reeks of a game that could, yes, be 23-9 Ravens at the end of the day, a nice boring game that's kind of one on the ground, and the Texans stumped themselves. But I'm just going to give these teams more credit offensively than I think everyone's going to give them credit for. I've seen the Ravens score a lot of points, and I've seen the Texans score a lot of points, and I don't see any reason for it to stop now against each other, to be honest. So I think the best play in this game is actually going to be the over for me, but I am not going to be upset or shocked if there's an upset with the Texans at the end of the day. Do the Ravens move on? I will say probably, but this could be one of those field goal, Justin Tucker wins the game at the end by 3 points type of deal. What do you got for me?
So Steve, I'm kind of on track with that. The best play I think here that I like, Isaiah Likely, anytime touchdown scorer.
All right, I gotta give you credit, Dave. I said it earlier in the show too. We've been good at identifying players on this show that have taken off, and we've been able to ride them to success. And Isaiah Likely was definitely your guy. You called him right off the bat, and he's been a scoring machine for you. Probably kind of back since November, really, I would say.
You've since been on his emergence as a top target there for Lamar.
Right.
I don't know, Steve. It's it's the playoffs, and you have to have that. Okay, well, you have your stars, you have the guys you know are probably going to be involved, but who's going to be that extra guy that scores a touchdown? We have them, all the time. And guys that you might not be super familiar with or, think are going to play that big of a role. And I just think Likely has, he has it for him. And I think Lamar is going to find him today for sure. So give me an Isaiah Likely anytime touchdown at plus 155, Steve. Do we know the weather up there that could play into that?
Yeah. Well, 50-mile-per-hour winds and it's cold. And you might want to shop around, Dave, because I see 2-to-1 odds on my book.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
There's some risk-free stuff going on today too on some of these sites. So
cool.
Creep around and look for it. Might as well. If you and again, people, that's a lesson. We try to teach lessons here. Just because you see the risk-free thing, don't think you're getting suckered into some kind of scam. Literally, when you bet it and it loses, you get that money refunded right back into your account. So this is your free chance to take some long shot stuff of craziness, because they're going to pay you back for it anyway.
Right.
So keep all that in mind. Anyway, other anytime touchdown scores, Lamar's 105, plus 105. Gus Edwards, plus 120. Singletary, plus 130. Nico Collins, plus 155. I think Nico can still have a good day today for him. Flowers, plus 150. Odell Beckham, plus 260. Dalton Schultz, I still think is underpriced at 3-to-1 odds. Justice Hill, plus 350. Dave Del Grande said he liked Mechie at a long shot at 6-to-1. Brevin Jordan, who scored last week for the Texans, is at 9-to-1. CJ Stroud is at 10-to-1, and he had a designed run by the goal line. How about this? Dameon Pierce all the way down to 12-to-1. What happened to Dameon Pierce? One of the biggest mysteries of the season.
No kidding.
For sure. So good numbers there for touchdown scores on some of these guys. For 2 touchdowns, Lamar's plus 650, Gus Edwards plus 750, Singletary plus 950, Flowers 10-to-1. Nico is 12-to-1, Isaiah Likely 17-to-1, Odell Beckham Jr. 24-to-1, Justice Hill 31-to-1, Dalton Schultz 30-to-1. Passing props wise, Lamar's at 228.5. CJ Stroud 236.5. An alternate passing number for Stroud if you think he does come out and has a great day. Plus 390 to get over 300 yards passing today for CJ Stroud. Passing touchdown wise, 2 touchdowns for Stroud pays plus 150. 3 touchdowns plus 560. Lamar for 2 passing is plus 106. 3 passing is at plus 420. So some good numbers there. Receiving prop wise, Schultz baseline 33.5, Beckham Jr. 36.5, Flowers 49.5, Nico Collins 80.5, Singletary 14.5, Justice Hill 14.5, Rashad Bateman 23.5, Robert Woods 22.5, Mechie 23.5 seems low a little bit, to be honest. Likely 37.5. Brevin Jordan just 13.5 for him, and he had a nice long touchdown last week as well. So down to 13.5 for him. Let's see here. Any of these guys you want to? How many yards do you like for likely, Dave? Potentially.
Let's see here. What's the baseline?
Just 33.5, I think. So, but
I think he could definitely get that.
37.5. But for 60 yards, he's plus 250. 70 yards plus 370. Let's see. Mechie has alternate yards today. 50 yards for him is plus 390. All right. Justice Hill, who can get the ball receiving, 25 yards for him plus 220. So there's some good numbers out there to be had if you float around here. Dalton Schultz, 60 yards plus 350. I mean, he's got to be a prime target today. I think Nico's going to get a chance here. I really do. 100 yards for Nico is plus 174. 110 yards is plus 225. 125 yards plus 350. All right, Dave, anything else ring your bell here?
Well, Steve, I have a little bit of a freebie here. I've got a Collins and Flowers boost, each to catch a pass in the first quarter, boosted to plus 100. So maybe a quick double your money hit right there.
All right. So do you like the outright upset here, or do you just think of the plus 9.5? Ravens skate by.
So I'm taking the spread. I think that they can hang in and cover it. I'm gonna have to stick with my guns, though. I've been saying that Baltimore looks like the real deal here. So
you have been a Baltimore backer more than anyone.
So
on the show.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to stick to my guns on that. But I tell you what, I kind of agree with you where you said you wouldn't be shocked either way, and if Houston pulls it out, I'll be like, wow, but I won't be, shocked.
If you're out there and you like it and you're undecided and you're an underdog player, this is your chance for sure on one of these. Let's see here. Next game on the board. Looks like we could have some rain for sure in the forecast this evening with the Packers and the 49ers. The line now up to 10 for the 49ers. Over under 50.5. All right. So Packers, we saw them win with the Cowboy meltdown. Packers not really getting credit as much as for the win, as much as Dallas is getting credited for the loss all week in the media. It was still all about Dallas in every show and everything that I listened to. So Green Bay still flying under the radar maybe a bit. The 49ers have been that dominant team we thought they would be all year. They do appear to be healthy. Del Grande does have concerns potentially about McCaffrey and his calf. I mean, so there's a chance he might not be 100%. So is that a beware in McCaffrey props? I think maybe it could be. All right, so beware with caution on that maybe. Maybe get a feel for what he looks like in the pregame too if you want to do something crazy like, put 3 touchdowns on him or something like that if you think the Niners are going to roll that big. But it's a big number now, double digits, 50.5. Niners have good weapons. The Packers have great weapons too. And they got 2 tight ends now who can actually play really, really good. So wide receivers, tight ends, Aaron Jones, Jordan Love looking good. Can their defense hold up? Can they get some protection? That's going to be the key for them. And wow, what if Purdy just goes down to stinker and throws like 2 or 3 picks in this game? Right? Don't you see a scenario in your head where that actually haunts everyone and plays out?
Oh, absolutely.
I could too. So buyer beware here. I'm not going to lay the points with the 49ers, although I could see them in the blowout scenario with the Ravens. 31-10 in both games. It could be correct score. Give me a shot with the Packers here. And even though it's rainy, I don't know if that's going to matter with an over-under with these two.
Right.
I'd be interested to see how heavy it's going to rain. I mean, if it's dumping buckets, yes, it's going to slow a game down there, an old candlestick. But I do like some points. Again, Dave, if I go back to the way all these games are being bet out on the money detail, if we look at the spread, just about 60-40 on both sides of the small bets and the big bets in favor of the 49ers. All right, so everyone's leaning 49ers in that regard. And how about this? 74% of the smaller bets are on the over, like I just said, but a whopping 83% of the bigger bets are also on the over. So everyone's still on this over. Man, Vegas is going to want to have, or all these books are going to want to have this game play under the total of 50.5. So I hate to go with all of that with an over. I'll tell you that kind of scares me. But I just don't see how this game doesn't end up over at the end of the day. Both of these teams could get into the 30s, and they both could get into the upper 20s anyway. So give me a fun game in the rain, exciting, and the Packers with a chance to win outright. Good fun game at the end of the day, and maybe a classic when it's all said and done. What do you got, Dave?
So, yeah, Steve, I could see the Packers winning this game. I'm going to take the points plus 10 over here for me. I think they can cover. You know, they're like you said, it's all been Dallas in the media and Green Bay's thinking, well, hey, nobody thought we'd be here. They're not giving us a chance against, you know, the powerful San Francisco 49ers. So I think that brings motivation, and that is why they cover this spread. As for the over-under, Steve, I am going to disagree with you. Something is telling me that this game gets into the 40s and just misses that over.
Well, that's what I did last week with the Cowboys Green Bay game. I went over 45.5, and I didn't play the total in that Rams game on my main ticket, just on my first instincts early ticket when there were no alt lines available. But if I would have lowered that over under as well too. So Dave, I think that's great advice. Actually, don't be afraid to move this line down some, and maybe the over under in the other game as well.
Right.
And the Ravens, if you want to play it that way. And if you bump it down to something like over 44.5, now you're laying just minus 260. But if you have a couple other things with conviction you want to go for and just do a best bet of all four of these games, then that's going to add up to still a nice ticket price.
Absolutely.
For you at the end of the day. If you want to buy some points there. Yeah, I could see the old screw job. Everyone has the over and loses their money.
You know, at 48, 49 points, it just barely doesn't get there.
Or they get there at halftime.
And you're thinking, oh, well, that was, that was stupid. But other than that, Steve, I'm going to also stick with my guns here. It worked last week. So let's ride it again. Give me an Aaron Jones anytime touchdown, only plus 105. But he scored first for the Pack last week. And I think he can do it again.
All right. Yep. And see what your book is best, wherever you're at. Because these numbers are everywhere. I see plus 125 for Jones. Debo's plus 105. McCaffrey. What do you have on McCaffrey? I see minus 350.
Minus 340.
All right. So a little bit worse here on my end. All right. If you wanted to do that. So that tells you these numbers will vary on these different sites either way. Ayuk plus 140, Kittle plus 145. Kittle had a huge divisional round last year against Seattle. Plus 210 for Jaden Reed. Plus 260 for Dobbs. My man Dontavian Wicks plus 330.
You called that.
He's been on fire for me. Again, identifying emerging talent and riding them to success. Christian Watson plus 340. Brock Purdy plus 500. Elijah Mitchell plus 500. San Francisco plus 500. You know, we're the one show that does that too. Everything else I listen to never talks about potential new players to jump on at nice prices and ride them for continued good prices. That list is long of players right now. I've got Isaiah Likely, like we just mentioned. Dontavian Wicks is another. As we go through some more of these, I'll pop some other names out, I'm sure. Musgrave plus 500. Kraft for plus 550. The double tight end parlay and yards thing almost worked out. I think it was a Tucker Kraft touchdown away from a big payout last week. I think Anthony had that. I think both guys for 50 yards, both guys for a touchdown, and Jordan Love for 250 yards, I think was the bet. So that might have to be another one again today because that was close to hitting last week. The Green Bay defense, 10-1 odds. If they can pick Purdy for a pick six, which I would not rule that out at the end of the day. Now, 263.5 is the baseline for Purdy. Jordan Love is 245.5. At the end of the day, I think those are probably both too low. I like both of those quarterbacks to throw for over those yards. I think Purdy's going to have a decent game. I think it's really going to come down to one mistake or two, Dave, but maybe literally one turnover. And somehow at the end of the day, I think it's Purdy.
All right.
And Jordan Love doesn't make that. So we shall see. For the interception, Purdy, yes, is plus 102. All right. So I like that number. Jordan Love is minus 158. I don't know if I like that number. You're getting no interception for Jordan Love at plus 118. And you can't parlay those two together, unfortunately. But I would take Love for no at plus 118 and Purdy, yes, at plus 102. And maybe see how that plays out for you. Let's see, 300-yard passers, if you want to do that way for Love. He's at plus 300. Brock Purdy is at plus 230 for 300 yards. 3 touchdowns for Purdy plus 220. 2 is at minus 200. So that's a big favorite. Jordan Love for 2 is at minus 122 and 3 touchdowns plus 320 for him. Rushing wise, we talked about McCaffrey maybe being dinged. 90.5 is his over-under for total. 68.5 for Aaron Jones. Deebo Samuel has a number, 16.5. I would take a shot at Jordan Love over 8.5 rushing yards, to be honest. Purdy, I would not touch over 6.5. There's been times he doesn't run at all, only because I've bet that before. He's not a scrambler. He will throw it away before he runs the ball. So I will avoid that one. I do have an alternate rushing yard on Jordan Love. 25 yards rushing for him is at plus 550. So that's interesting. Aaron Jones to get to 100 yards today is at plus 320. Wow. I mean, those are some good numbers, to be honest. If you wanted to do a double whammy of Love for 25 and Aaron Jones for 100, that pays 24-1 odds.
Nice.
So $5 would win you $120 on that. I mean, you're just asking Jordan Love to get 2 long scrambles against the 49ers team that will generate a pass rush. The receiving prop numbers, you're going to find a bunch of fun ones in this one too. Kittle's 53.5, Deebo 59.5, Ayuk 68.5, McCaffrey 32.5, Dobbs 35.5, Jaden Reed 39.5, Dontavian Wicks 31.5, Aaron Jones just 18.5. Del Grande loves that one. Christian Watson is at 27.5 now. So that is dropped. Musgrave 18.5. Tucker Kraft just 18.5. All low numbers for those guys. You could even take alternate receiving yards for 40. How about this? 40 yards for Kraft, 40 for Musgrave, and 40 for Christian Watson. Pays 41-1 odds for the 2 tight ends to get 40 and Christian Watson to get 40 yards. Interesting. So there's a lot of fun stuff you can potentially do out there. Deebo, he could have a big day, I think, for sure. 100 yards for him is at plus 390. All right, so I'm not going to be all Packers all the time. I think the Niners definitely get theirs. McCaffrey is a little dinged. I think Deebo is the next best suspect up. All right, Ayuk is there too, but maybe the long ball not necessarily there if it's raining. So more of a Deebo slant pass type of game. All right, and try to break him into space. Jaden Reed, I would expect him to emerge as well. And I mean, that's the thing. The Packers have so many weapons. Who are going to get the numbers and who's going to get left out. At the end of the day, someone gets left out. So I think some fun to be had with some of these receiving yard numbers all across the board, Dave.
Absolutely.
All right, let's see here. 2 touchdowns on this one. I'll do that real quick. McCaffrey is at plus 135. Debo at plus 700. Aaron Jones 9-1. Kittle 10-1. Ayuk 10-1. Jaden Reed 16-1. Dobbs 22-1. Dontavian Wicks 30-1. Oh man, that was another thing of Wicks. I talked about my bad beats with Cooper on a yard, a low-scoring Lions and Rams second half. But if Dontavian Wicks scores one more touchdown last week for me, then that was another $4,000.
Nice.
To be honest. Christian Watson plus 3,200 for 2. Elijah Mitchell plus 4,100. San Fran defense 45-1. Both the tight ends are paying great, 55-1, 60-1 for the Packers. They're paying worse than Purdy, which is interesting. Purdy's 50-1 for 2. I would think a Packer tight end would get 2 touchdowns before Purdy. That's just me. Rushing on the ground for Purdy anyway. Anything else with you, Dave, here?
No, Steve, I think that's it. I have one thing here that I liked. So for game leaders, the most receiving and rushing yards, Debo Samuel at plus 450. You know, he likes to line up in the backfield. They do that for him, and they're going to throw it to him.
That's all the games?
That's just in this game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Nice.
So you got Christian McCaffrey is at minus 150.
I like that because they're going to spread it around more.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to go with a little bit, if you want a little bit more of a obscure play, Debo Samuel for the most receiving and rushing yards at plus 450.
All right. I do like that, actually. I do. Let's see here. Next game on the board. Let's go to Sunday, 3:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Lions and the Buccaneers, minus 6.5, 49.5. Lions survive at home. They don't get past the 35-yard line after the 7-minute mark of the second quarter last week. But that's enough to win against the Rams still. Isn't that crazy? And the Buccaneers, who everyone hated, Baker Mayfield, said he was terrible, said that he sucked. He's no good. Well, I never backed off of that. Well, I never agreed to that. I never backed off the fact that he could be a good NFL quarterback. And he's turned out to be pretty decent. Both him and Goff have been written off. And they both are fighting back, all right, and gaining their respect of their teammates and the general NFL public as a whole, we shall say. So a good matchup in that regard with the quarterbacks. And I think this is a potentially really fun game for sure, where I think it was, this is kind of weird to say, but the Buccaneers might they have a better offense than the Rams. So I don't think this game gets stuck under like the Rams-Lions game. I think there's a chance for Tampa Bay to score some points here for sure. And it comes at the end of the Detroit secondary, to be honest, who has been bad. I mean, they have been outright terrible. If you go back and look at the receiver numbers against the Detroit secondary, Dave, they are insane. Like Keenan Allen had 175 yards. As DJ Moore killed him twice. The list, CeeDee Lamb, the list is long,
right,
of receivers who have burned through the Detroit secondary. A couple players in particular, all right, can't cover it all. One of the guys is a Vidor, I think his name is, for the Lions. I'd have to look at their roster. But he has given up a touchdown in 7 straight weeks, all right, and a ton of yards in coverage. He's like by far the worst guy to have a let's see, do I even have him listed? No. He has by far like the worst rated cornerback in football. All right. And there's Mike Evans, Godwin is still capable. Cade Otton has emerged to be a pretty nice tight end. You have Trey Palmer, another guy who's kind of emerged out of nowhere that we took last week. I mean, he could have a great game. His numbers are low too. Wait till we look at that. David Moore, seasoned veteran. Here he is, David Moore. I mean, he's kind of risen from the ashes to help out. So the Buccaneers have some offense. I do love me some Jahmyr Gibbs too. And he did great for us last week as well. I have faith in Goff. Interesting matchup in the trenches, too, because I think we have two good offensive defensive lines at the end of the day. I think Goff's going to get a clean pocket. So I think that's why I think the offensive line of Detroit maybe a little bit better than Tampa's D.
Right.
Tampa, even though they had Vita Vea, they've lacked a little bit of a pass rush at times. So that being said, just kind of give me an over here as the best play. And I don't know how I could see the Lions covering 6.5, winning by a touchdown. But man, the Buccaneers look very tempting here as an underdog as well. I think home field advantage is going to play huge here as well. So I think that's why I favor Detroit at the end of the day. I will not risk points. I probably won't take them either, but I'll go ahead and take an over here with the Lions and the Buccaneers. What is your first thought?
My first thought, Steve, is give me the Buccaneers plus 205 on the money line. This is the upset waiting to happen. Something is just telling me, Steve. And if the secondary is that bad for Detroit, which we know it to be, give me Mike Evans for 2. It's at plus 600. But you got to figure, their top target is just going to kind of run wild against these guys. If we're going to get it over, he's going to have a lot to do with it, Steve. So I'm going to take Tampa for the upset and then give me Mike Evans to have a big game here in this one. I think the yardage props, and we'll take a look at that real quick, see what that is as we load up the stats here. And Mike Evans is at 71.5. I think he could probably go for 80 to 90. And, Mike Evans for 2 as well, Steve.
I like the Evans props for sure. I think he can get off. I like, and Del Grande loves those as well. Godwin, I would even throw him into the mix. I really think it's a green light for all these receivers for Tampa Bay in a weird way. Evans, 72.5 baseline. Godwin, 63.5. Cade Otton is 29.5, and that seems low to me.
It's always low. He gets that every time.
Trey Palmer, 17.5 seems low. Even Rashad White, 22.5 seems low. Gibbs, 22.5 seems low for Detroit. He killed that last week. He's not going to do the same thing this week. Gibbs is just a weapon. St. Brown is 91.5. Laporte is 41.5. Jameson Williams, 33.5. Josh Reynolds, 39.5. Passing prop wise, 277.5 for Goff. Baker Mayfield, 260.5 are their baselines. If you want touchdown props, 3 for Goff is at plus 260. 3 for Baker Mayfield is at plus 370. 300-yard passers for that game, for this game. Baker is at plus 225. And 300-yard passer for Goff is at plus 162. Of course, you can take them in different increments. Goff all the way up to 350 plus yards is at plus 520. All right, so you can move these numbers wherever you want. 2 touchdown scores. Do we do the single scores? We'll do those. Then the 2 touchdowns. Gibbs minus 130. Montgomery minus 125. Rashad White minus 125. 3 guys in the minus. Mike Evans plus 100. St. Brown plus 100. Laporta plus 135. That tells you they're going to think there's points in this game. The fact that all these are so low right off the top. Godwin plus 220, I think, is a good number there. Jameson Williams plus 280. Cade Otton at plus 370 is great. Trey Palmer plus 450. You can take a chance there. He scored last week. David Moore scored last week. He's plus 650. All right. So good numbers to be had. 2 touchdown scores. Gibbs plus 460. Montgomery plus 500. Rashad White plus 500. St. Brown plus 650. Evans 7-1. Laporta 10-1. Godwin 18-1. Jameson Williams 27-1. Cade Otton 42-1. Palmer 49-1. Josh Reynolds 34-1. So good numbers all over. And then the rusher props as well here. Gibbs 48.5 baseline for him. Montgomery's 55.5. Del Grande likes that over. Rashad White 53.5. Green Bay, I think they're going to come out passing here.
Baker, I don't feel like he's tricky. He runs like he's going to run it, and then he throws it at the last minute. That's the problem with Baker. He's just a 7.5 for his rushing yards overall. So Dave's going to call the upset.
Yep.
And higher scoring game, Dave, or lower scoring?
Probably a higher score in between these two.
All right. And I'll call for the over straight up. And yeah, none of the outcomes would surprise me on the underdogs.
Right.
Now, I was trying to make a case for the underdog in the last game with the Chiefs and the Bills, making a case for the Chiefs that they're going to resurrect from the ashes. Oh, here we go. It's playoff time. Let's hit the green light. Pat Mahomes style. Oh, man, everyone watch out. We're going to win the Super Bowl. All right, so we got a taste of that. What possibly could be happening as they easily beat Miami last week. And the Bills were able to get by the Steelers with a rash of injuries on defense.
Right.
All right, so that makes things interesting on the Buffalo end here. In this rematch of teams who have a rich playoff history just in the last 4 years, it is not much at all. So here we go again with the Bills and the Chiefs, -2.5, 45.5. Late game on Sunday. Josh Allen, Captain America, against Patrick Mahomes. The Buffalo secondary scares me that Mahomes is going to wake up and pick these guys apart. But Del Grande makes a good point here last week. The Chiefs, although they beat Miami, and yeah, they looked somewhat impressive, Miami just didn't look good at all. They looked like they didn't want to be there. It was cold. This is a different story with Buffalo at the end of the day. I think this is kind of Buffalo's time. Now, I'm trying to make that case for the Chiefs to do everything that I just said, because the Patriots have done that. Oh, they're not good this year. They suck. Oh, next thing you know, they won the Super Bowl. Like, how the hell did that happen? In fact, the Chiefs just did that last year, right?
Right.
So I just get the sense that Buffalo is kind of due on this one, and that Josh Allen can outscore the Chiefs at the end of the day. Now, a lot of people have been making the case for the under on this game. And let me look at the money splits on this.
45.5, Steve. That seems kind of low between these two to me.
Right. And a lot of money is coming in on the over in the Bucs and the Lions, by the way. Smaller bets and bigger bets both dominating the over in that game. But in this game, we have just about an even split with the sides on the point spread. And as far as the total goes, all the bigger bets are on the under in this game. All right, so really the two biggest discrepancies would be the Ravens under and the Bills Chiefs under. Yes, I could see that being a winning bet at the end of the day, for sure.
Maybe we ought to play that.
Well, maybe just for $25 or something to ensure everything, right? Because you make your money back if all the props go south,
right?
And these games stay under. So maybe even a little bit of an alt under in that regard, David, to juice it up. But the Chiefs Bills 45.5. I think they get there. I think the Chiefs will be a little bit better on offense. Kelsey could have a good game here. I can give Kansas City 20 points here. I can. But I think Buffalo gets something like 27 or 31. And they can win this game. Not convincing, but they can win it by a score or two where it's a little comfortable at the end, maybe. Just because Josh Allen's going to make some big plays. And a few more bigger plays because he has a little bit more offensive talent at the end of the day than what I think the Chiefs have on their side. Now, the Chiefs are smart. They're going to get Pacheco involved because he runs so hard.
Right.
We'll see. They abandoned him last week. In fact, I do like him in the passing game a little bit because let's get this guy open in space. It just seems obvious to me. Let's get this guy open in space. But we've yet to see that. Maybe that's this game. Touchdown scores here. Allen -115. Pacheco +115. Diggs +135. Kelsey +135. Rice +130. Cook +140. Kincaid +260. Shakir, I like him. I always do, +340. Justin Watson +350. Dawson Knox +470. Pat Mahomes +550. Valdez Scantling +650. Edwards-Helaire +800. Mecole Hardman +800. Dave, I'm just going to take the Bills at the end of the day and trust that they're going to win this game at home over the Chiefs. What do you got?
So, Steve, I was just getting ready to say let's stick to our guns here, because I believe here in the studio, I know myself, I said if the Bills make the playoffs, because they had a real tough road to do it, if they can make the playoffs, watch out, because they are going to be dangerous once they get there. They survived against the Steelers, and they're moving on. So I think at the end of the day here, Steve, it's going to be the Bills for me. Something is telling me to take the over as well, so I think I'm probably going to do that. But also, Steve, I want to sprinkle in here a little Josh Allen rushing yards. You see what he did in that last game. And he can run it when he needs to. So he is at 42.5 at a minus 135 price. You probably get a alt line on him just for 50 yards, Steve, which he did last week, is at plus 120. Count me in for that. So give me Allen 50+ rushing yards, the Bills outright, and I think I got to take the over in this one.
2 touchdowns, Josh Allen plus 550, Pacheco plus 800, Kelsey plus 950, Rashee Rice 10-1, James Cook 10-1, Diggs 10-1. No Gabe Davis in this game, it looks like. Dalton Kincaid 28-1, Justin Watson 35-1. Shakir is interesting, 35-1 since there's no Gabe Davis. Dawson Knox 55-1. Buffalo defense is 75-1. Mahomes 75-1. Valdez Scantling 95-1. Clyde Edwards-Helaire 120-1. Mecole Hardman 130-1. Latavius Murray 130-1. All right, so some interesting numbers on some of those guys who actually can find the end zone, and maybe just randomly twice, to be honest. Receiving props in this game. James Cook 18.5, Diggs 61.5, Dalton Kincaid 40.5, Pacheco's 18.5, Rashee Rice 71.5, Kelsey 61.5, Watson 19.5, Hardman 13.5. I feel like Kelsey should be higher.
Right.
Dawson Knox 12.5, Shakir 34.5. I feel like that's too low. So you got some receivers with some low numbers again in some of these games. If you just take maybe Kelsey and pump him up a little bit, and maybe let's see, who's the other guy I'm looking at here? Let's see, you could take Pacheco, maybe bump him up just a hair on an alt line. All right, and throw him with a couple Green Bay guys, maybe a Nico Collins. I mean, you can really sprinkle this around and kind of have a fun little time with your weekend here, and get a nice payout, especially if you take some of these guys just for like 60 yards. Find five or six receivers. Find 5 receivers for 60 yards in all these games, and I bet you it pays out a fortune on $10. All right, and it's not going to be a lot to ask for in some of these games that could potentially have a lot of points. Rushing props, Allen's 43.5, Cook 61.5, Mahomes 26.5, Pacheco is 63.5, Edwards-Helaire 9.5. I love the Josh Allen rushing angle again. I think he's just going to will this team to success. And then for 2 touchdowns, I could see him doing that. Plus 550, Pacheco is plus 800, Kelsey plus 950, Rice 10-1, Cook 10-1, Diggs 10-1, Kincaid 28-1, Watson 35-1, Shakir 35-1, Knox 55-1. All right. So maybe I went through that. I don't know. All right, David. So you like the Bills here?
I do.
So Bills and Ravens for you?
Yeah.
That would be in Baltimore. And then you're going to take Tampa and
I it's probably not going to happen, but I'm going to take the obscure matchup of Green Bay and Tampa Bay.
The old Bay of Pigs, Chris Berman
The
style.
old Bay championship game.
Wow. That would be something that no one would have expected.
Nobody.
All right. So we'll see how that plays out. If you want to take the old Bay of Pigs special, let's look at that on the lines real quick, because we talked about it out of the studio. So Green Bay to meet Tampa Bay will be at plus 1525 on your odds, Dave. So $10 wins you 152. Maybe that should be your bet.
Right. Yep.
And just roll with it. All right. So that's it for divisional weekend. let's see. Let's go ahead and do our 2 touchdown scores. We'll do a little bit of hockey. We'll go ahead and get on out of here. We'll do the 2 touchdown scores. We'll do the best bets again, and then we'll look at a little bit of the NHL slate as we will start what the puck is going on next Saturday morning. David, how about that?
How about it?
So what the puck is going on new home next Saturday.
Johnny. 4 weeks. 20 papers, that's $2 plus tip. Gee, Johnny, I don't have a dime. Sorry. Didn't ask for a dime. $2.
Yeah, give me 2 times and a Rick Flair.
It's a jungle out there. You got to look out for number 1, but don't step at number 2.
Utah, give me 2.
And Jimmy 2 times, who got that nickname because he said everything twice, like...
I'm going to go get the papers.
All right, Dave, here are your best chances for 2 touchdown scores this weekend.
All right, Steve, give me Josh Allen for 2. Feel like he can get that for sure. I'm going to take Mike Evans as well. So, and I think that's, Steve, that's about all I have to feel comfortable with right now. So I'm going to stick with the 2 guys as we can sprinkle in some. You know what? Give me Likely for 2 if I'm going to go on a Likely train. Give me Likely for 2, Evans for 2, and Josh Allen for 2.
All right, that would be a nice payout. I'll try to give you one you can try to mess with on each team with, and then I'll also give you a long shot one as well. So I'm not saying I'm going to play all of these, but I'll give you one from each team you can mess around with and go from there. I would take a shot maybe at Lamar Jackson plus 650. I would also maybe take a shot at Nico Collins at plus 12-1. As a long shot one, Dalton Schultz at 30-1 would be the way I would go there, because that's a nice long shot payout on Schultz. In the Packer game, I would take Aaron Jones at plus 850, and I would take Deebo Samuel at plus 700. And if you're going to do a long shot, might as well stick with my man Wicks at 30-1 for him. In the next game with the Lions and the Buccaneers, I agree with Evans, but I'll take the I'll throw another curveball at you. So go ahead and take Godwin at 18-1. Actually, I would take Cade Otton over Godwin at 42-1. I just feel like he likes Otton a little bit better than Godwin. So 42-1 for Otton. And if that's not a long shot, how about Trey Palmer at 49-1 as well? And Jahmyr Gibbs at plus 460 would be my angle with Detroit. For Buffalo, I definitely like the Josh Allen angle for 2 touchdowns potentially for him. But we'll go ahead and add in a chance for Dawson Knox at 55-1 since he loves him as a target. And then Kelsey, I think, is fair game at plus 950, to be honest, for the Chiefs if you want to go that route. Wouldn't shock me if Pacheco gets in either, I guess, at plus 800. I'm going to have to mess around with that some more tomorrow, but bigger fish to fry for sure. All right, Dave, your best bets are?
All right, best bets are going to be, let's pull them up, see what I got here as we continue to load here. All right, Steve, best bets. I think I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Houston Texans plus 9.5, Steve. I really like that. And then what did I have for the I'm going to go Isaiah Likely, anytime score. We talked about that. Give me Aaron Jones anytime and Mike Evans anytime.
All right. I'm going to take the over in the Texans-Ravens. I will also take the Packers plus 10, and I'll take the over there reluctantly at the end of the day. I'll take the over in the Buccaneers and the Lions game, and I'll take the Bills in the over in that game. So I'll go with all the overs. Why not? I think they can get there. They're actually priced like they are. I mean, these are high over-under numbers for a divisional weekend.
Right.
You would think they would be a hair lower maybe, considering. But I think we can get there. All right, Dave. That's it for the 4 NFL games. So if any of you guys need any NFL replay content, you can always go to Deepend, DEEPEND 757.com for the replay as soon as this show ends. We do have a full NHL slate, so we'll go ahead and hit on that for a minute. Maybe not quite a full. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games. So we have a handful of teams not playing, but 24 teams on the ice tonight or today. So we have hockey all day leading up to the NFL. So let's just start from the top with Tampa. And Tampa, they will be a slight favorite at Buffalo. Colorado is a slight favorite at Philadelphia. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The first game at 12:40. The Predators and Coyotes and Arizona at 3 o'clock Eastern, so a noon game local time. The Predators a slight favorite on the road. The Jets are minus 140 at Ottawa, another 3 p.m. Eastern Standard game. And then everything else starts at night. Trio of games at 7 p.m. Eastern. Montreal, a big underdog at Boston. Toronto is a slight underdog at Vancouver. That's an interesting game.
That is.
Dallas, a favorite at New Jersey, minus 142. And then a string of games to cap off the night. Our Capitals are at the Blues, and the flip side of the back-to-back, which the Capitals easily went over 2.5 goals, David.
I know. As soon as they did it, I was like...
The Blues minus 128, slight favorite there. The Ducks a slight favorite at San Jose, who's been atrocious. Pittsburgh and Golden Knights, a good game. Pittsburgh a favorite in Vegas tonight at 10-10, just a slight favorite. Edmonton a slight favorite on the road at Calgary. Calgary could be a team who's emerging here towards the second half of the season. And the Rangers and the Kings, interesting matchup there, minus 126 at home for the Kings over the Rangers. So, Dave, your thoughts on the slate overall and maybe a couple picks you got going on.
So, Steve, I like these matchups here. I like Tampa Bay to get it done in regulation. They're starting to come back to the form that, we know them to be. I know they had a little bit of a dip there, which, look, it's a long NHL season, 82 games. They're not all going to be pretty, and it's not going to be a perfect ride to the finish. Everybody is going to have these highs and lows throughout the season. But I think Tampa is coming back to what we know them to be from the last few years. So give me Tampa on a 60-minute line there, Steve. I hate to say it, but I have a feeling that the Flyers can win this game against Colorado at home. The over-under, I don't know if I would touch because I could see it going. I could see it flying over, but I could see it coming under too, just because these teams, do look so good, and Colorado is, top tier in the league, so their defense is good. It could be a 3-2 game, really, Steve. So I wouldn't play any of that. Believe it or not, I would actually give the Flyers a chance in this one. Preds Coyotes, that's kind of take it or leave it. Predators should be able to handle business there. Look for an over, Steve, in the Winnipeg and Ottawa game. Ottawa can score a lot of points, but they have trouble stopping people, and Winnipeg looks to be one of the best in the league so far at the halfway point. Boston should throttle Montreal, I would think. Stars and Devils should be a good game. I'm going to give the edge to the Stars there. Maple Leafs, Canucks, look for that to go over in my mind. 6.5 is the number. Those two teams can really pile it on. Although Vancouver did not bring a winning ticket home. That was very, very close the other night. Caps, Blues. Steve, let's go back to the well there. We'll look for over 2.5 for the Caps. We'll fire on that tonight.
Now they'll score 1 goal.
And now, it'll be, 2 goals for him.
Oshie with a hat trick, I believe, in that game.
Yep,
right?
he had the hattie in the last game. Look for Edmonton to continue their hot streak. Boy, so, Steve, now Edmonton, I think, is where we thought they were going to be all along. They had a terrible, terrible start to the season. has everybody thinking, what the hell is wrong with Edmonton? They have righted that ship, one of the hottest teams in the league. So give them the edge over the Flames. The Ducks and the Sharks, take the Ducks on the 60 is what I would do. The Sharks are terrible. Ducks aren't very good either, but I feel they're a touch better than the Sharks. They should be able to handle business there in San Jose. Give me the Golden Knights, Steve, in Pittsburgh. And I tell you what, give me the Rangers over the Kings. The Kings have just been kind of sliding here lately. Little bit to worry about there in LA. So hopefully they can get that ship righted before too long. But give me the Rangers over LA to finish off the night, Steve.
All right, let's see what I might like here. I would take a look at Colorado at Philadelphia at 1:00. Let's see here. I would take a look at Winnipeg as well. And I think both of those teams can win in regulation. So if I do a ticket real quick, let's see what I can come up with for you guys here. For an NHL early play, where's my 60-minute line? Here we go. So Winnipeg on the 60-minute line is plus 105. And I think I was wrong last week. I said something like 17, 18 games. It's something more like 27 games now that Winnipeg is not allowed 3 goals or more, or over 3 goals.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Let's see. So I like that Avalanche. So if I take them on the 60-minute line, I know this is exciting radio, going slowly through these lines. That's plus 125. Now let's find one more for you. I'll bypass Boston and Montreal. I'll bypass Toronto and the Canucks. Why do I think Toronto is going to win that game, though? I'll tell you what. Give me the Stars against New Jersey coming off the back-to-back last night, in which I don't know. Did New Jersey end up losing that game to Columbus? I saw that they were down. I was following the Florida score more than anything, Dave.
I think they won.
Okay, so they came back and won. And then I'll take our Caps again. Here we go. We'll go back to the well. So a 4-team play for you guys out there in hockey. We will take Winnipeg on the 60-minute line, Colorado on the 60-minute line, the Dallas Stars on the 60-minute line, and we'll take the Capitals over 2.5 goals. And $10 will win you $151.15. How about that?
There you go.
All right. No sound effects. Here I go. First sound effect of the show. Right at the very end. All right, Dave. And we'll do 9:00 Saturday mornings. What the puck?
Yeah.
That seems to be the best time for the show.
That'll work.
To be honest. Okay. So Saturday mornings from here on out, the rest of the season, we will do. Then if we have to, we can record super early.
Right.
That day or whatever. So 9:00 a.m. every Saturday. What the puck is going on? We'll come back on the air. We'll go ahead and cue up the What the Puck sounder one time. We haven't heard that in a while. Let's see how long it takes for this. I feel like the What the Puck sounder.
What the puck is going on?
It takes 10 seconds to say. All right, David. We'll go ahead and close it out.
All right.
Now, soccer chance. We'll go ahead and close it out with the docile sound of the Pie Tasters as we approach 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Round Robin. Oh, here we go. Over halfway done with January. How about that? It's January the 20th.
Crazy.
So February in spring and March Madness on deck once we get through
soon
these 3 final football games following this weekend. Business first. Good luck, everyone out there. Win some loot. Hopefully you learned something this morning. Again, hit deepend757.com for replay. Have a safe weekend.
keep looking